Hi, this is Reese Roper, and you're listening to our newest podcast ever.
Hey, everybody, this is Andrew and John, and we love this podcast because it's about us.
Welcome to Magnified Pod, the second season, our newest podcast ever. And I saw you standing over there, and I was wondering if, maybe you wanted to go do something. I'm Andrew.
No, I'm John.
This is our podcast.
That was good. That was solid.
Yeah, trying to do a little reference since got to come up with something new every week since everybody is blowing it and doesn't want to. Nobody wants to play the game. I guess this is. I don't know if this is me just trying to force something that everybody's like, nope, not getting into it. But
Just to remind everyone, we welcome your silly intro ideas.
Yeah, because it's going to change every week, whether you like it or not, or whether you contribute or not. So it'll probably just get less funny with me trying to come up with them.
That was gold.
Trying. Speaking of gold, got this golden brown elixir that I'm drinking over here.
That looks nice.
One of my classic old fashions.
I love it. What kind of bourbon you rocking in there?
Only Chicago's finest Koval.
Hey, that's
Heyo. I'll gladly take some of that Koval SpawnCon.
Yes, please.
If anybody wants to send P.O. Box, we don't have a P.O. Box.
No, I should.
I think I looked into a P.O. Box a long time ago. Do you know it costs a lot? It costs money, like good amounts of money to get a P.O. Box, and I'm not ready to rent out a P.O. Box when nobody wants to send us intros, let alone free shit.
Liquor, yeah.
If you want to send us, what were we asking? We were asking for beer last time.
I still welcome that. You can just put your home address. That's fine.
Yeah, I'll personally hand out my address to strangers on the internet and expect
always works out.
There shouldn't be any problems at all. So, John, what's going on? What's going on with you? What do you got going on over there?
I'm drinking a little water because I don't feel good.
Oh, no. Was it because you were hanging out in ice castles again?
That might have been, yeah. Like everybody in our house is sick, and we've all kind of I didn't go to work today, and my kid didn't go to school on Monday, and then he had to leave early today because he was sick, and we're all just kind of a mess. So anyway, I pulled it together for the pod, though.
Making the sacrifice.
That's right.
Instead of sitting on your couch watching the season premiere of Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
That's true. We keep making sacrifices for the pod.
I know. We missed the series finale of The Good Place for the pod. We're missing the season premiere of Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah.
And, we're doing this for the people.
It's true.
I don't know why we keep doing it on that dope Thursday night lineup, though.
What did they used to call it? Like must-see TV
Must-see
Thursday?
TV. Yeah, that's. I think that originally started with Seinfeld. And,
right.
And, what's the deal with must-see TV?
Well, it's.
I don't have to see anything I don't want to see. Stop trying to make me see it.
Oh man, so good.
Who wants to see me? Nobody wants to see me. Come down to the club.
Must see TV. Must pod Thursdays. Now it's must pod Thursdays.
You can't even see the pod. Must hear Thursdays. I don't know. What's going on?
NBC, if you'd like to sponsor us as well.
I think we just got a cease and desist from Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah, please refrain from ever doing that again.
I think if Jerry Seinfeld got a check for every time someone did a bad impression of him,
yeah, that's true. He'd be more insanely wealthy.
Yeah, he would be more obnoxious and more rich.
I hear he loves Christian ska, so he's probably a listener. That
is true. If anything, the Seinfeld intro was it did have that You did have some slapping bass. Nope, that will definitely get us a cease and desist.
Oh yeah, that's true.
They have you ever heard when like somebody does like a Seinfeld parody and they have like just a slightly off version of the Seinfeld bass intro?
Yeah,
and it's
not weird.
It's sort of adjacent to it, but
right.
This is our Seinfeld Podfeld.
There's probably many of those. I haven't done digging.
Yeah. Or we'll call it, What's the Deal with Podcasts?
Yeah, that's a pretty good title.
Have you seen this? This is just our 90s. It's just going to be everything 90s.
Perfect.
It's our Have You Seen This pod. Anyway, we've got some business that we need to tackle up front. I think you need to tackle because you were called out by more than one person regarding Steve.
Come on, Steve.
Yeah.
More like, come on, John.
Come on, John.
Yeah. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, wait, no. That's something else. No, I've got a few corrections here, or like a couple corrections and one interesting omission, I'll say.
Okay.
So
Sure.
This is our first corrections corner, I think. We used to rock those a little more frequently on the MXPX season, but
that's true because we had I think we had more MXPX haters, like people who were like, "Fuck these guys!
Yeah.
They don't know what their JFK stuff."
There needs to be an I hate MXPX group so that we get a little more leeway.
Did you just so we're clear? Did you catch my talking about they hate the JFK stuff?
I did, but no one else did.
Okay, I just wanted you to acknowledge it so people weren't like, what
JFK?
What are you talking about? Anyway,
that can be a plug to go check out our ratings and reviews. If you'd like to offset some that contain gibberish, you're always free to do so.
You're always free to do that. Please do that.
Okay, so back to Come On, Steve. Now, last week we talked about all the hype, and we talked about the song "The Phantom Mullet," and Reese says, "Come on, Steve," before the big guitar buildup, and I was like, "Who's Steve?" And we were speculating as to who it could be. You said it's probably some Steve from an '80s rock band, and you were right about that. And yes, multiple people pointed out, of course, Steve Clark, the guitarist of Def Leppard. The subject of our spin-off Def Leppard pod, which you can go back and check out. That one's real.
That is one of our real fake pods.
Yeah. And so that's, of course, lead singer Joe Elliott talking to guitarist Steve Clark in the song Armageddon It, a classic off Hysteria, where he says, "Come on, Steve," before a sweet guitar solo. So anyway, of course, they were channeling that. I really fell down on the job. I think I knew that somewhere in the recesses of my brain, but...
but for the people that don't understand why you should know that is because we have talked about your love of 80s metal and 80s glam metal. I think we even talked about it on last week's episode.
We did, yeah.
And maybe we even talked about Def Leppard.
We did, yeah. So it's just a failure.
And how it was how your first album was, your first CD that you ever bought was Adrenalize by Def Leppard.
Adrenalize, yep.
So it was just fail on fail on fail.
Yeah, no good.
Yeah. Well, so this will be John's last episode because
sorry everybody. It's been a joy and an honor.
It's too embarrassing to just fumble the ball that hard so close to the end zone.
Sorry everybody. Anyway, I'm glad I have closure on that though. Also, I believe, as the correction on myself from me, I believe I said last episode that there was that quote from Keith from the band about the album being a rock record with horns. And I think I said that was about all the hype. But in fact, that was a reference to Electric Boogaloo, which we'll be talking about this week, which makes more sense. Right. So anyway, I think I said that wrong. Apologies for that. Finally, one thing that past and future guest Brian Nelson Phelan pointed out to us was that, I've been saying each week, like, wow, they knocked another one out in November, that each year they were putting out an album basically. And I thought that was just like their commitment to doing that. But yeah, I looked into it a little bit, and that was the contract that they had with 5 Minute Walk, basically, that Reese said, for us, we had to make a new album every year. That was how 5 Minute Walk operated money-wise. It was too much. So
yeah, and I think it was something that Brian said in the text thread.
Right.
Was, imagine if they had a little more time with all the hype.
Right.
Maybe it could have been. I just think there's so much potential there.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, it just wasn't fleshed out enough. And I think there could have been, I think there was greatness hiding somewhere in the inconsistencies.
Yeah. It was just something I hadn't really thought about, that they were not, that maybe they would have liked a little more time on some of those albums, such as that one.
It's so unrealistic to think, like, because you got to think, so part in a 1 year span, they have to write an album, record the album, tour.
Yeah.
And then somewhere in all that time of touring and living their lives, they have to come up with new material.
Right.
And then do it. And I mean, a year sounds like a long time, but it's not for writing an album. And
that
then
sounds
doing
horrible.
It does sound truly horrible.
It's pretty crazy when you think about, like, I mean, it was really only like 8 years that they were together. It feels like more because they were banging out an album every year.
Right.
But yeah, that I can understand why you might want to be done after a cycle of that for years on end. So
right. Yeah. I honestly, I can't fault them. And I know that there's a lot that you can glamorize about this life. And it does seem at times that it could possibly be the absolute worst.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the Corrections Corner.
Well, thank you for owning up to
that's right.
your mistakes. When I make one, I will let everybody know.
Okay. That'll never happen.
No. Oh man, it's so unbearable for me, David. Joke. John, let's listen to. Should we listen to some voicemails, because
let's do it.
We have a first time caller.
Hey,
I don't know if it's a first time, long time.
Okay.
But he didn't say. But we have our third Jason. We have Jason from Unoriginal Vinyl. We have Jason Ariano, who called last week. And did call again this week. And now we have Jason from Atlanta. So
we got enough Jasons, Brians, and Dannys, okay, people? There's a moratorium on any of those names, so come up with a new one.
Calm down, everybody. Let's get some let's diversify it a little bit, all right? All right, let's get a couple like Neds in there. Or man. I don't know.
Please call us Ned.
All right, here's Jason from Atlanta.
Hey, this is Jason from Atlanta. Man, loving the podcast. The 5 especially takes me back to my late high school years. Few notes. My first 5 Iron concert was a Proof the Youth Are Revolting concert. And I remember being scandalized by the fact that the lead singer of the W's had a NoFX hat on. The Riot Gear song was the first song My Little Sheltered Behind had ever heard that questioned whether or not the police were right about things, which, as I've gotten older, I appreciate. All the hype. Man, I remember that's the first album I ever listened to that I was disappointed in. I was so looking forward to it, and it was such a letdown. Yeah, keep on rocking with the pod. Also, the Atlanta show I was at just recently, and I'm disappointed that it's all, like, old greatest hits. I want to hear, like, them play Engine of a Million Plots back to front. That would be like my ideal 5 Iron concert. I've seen them 7 or 8 times at this point. I don't need to hear Blue Comb again. It's a classic, but switch it up a little. All right, love the pod. Keep on rocking, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, man. So a lot to unpack there. As I had said in last episode, all the hype, I didn't end up getting it, so I didn't have that moment of disappointment that I think a lot of people would have had I ended up buying the record. Like maybe I should have, but
right.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, so what I said like a couple episodes ago before we went through the album was like referencing that it was not one of my favorites, and you were like, I don't think you're alone in that. And that was kind of the first time I guess I was aware of that idea for some reason in my head, because it had like sold really well. And that's kind of when they broke through to another level and got some new, like I said, we were seeing like displays for it at record stores and stuff. Right. I assumed that people were into that. So it's been interesting to see, like I felt sort of, sad admitting like, I don't like this album very much. And everybody's like, oh yeah, neither do we, including the band. So it's like,
right. But however, we did have somebody, Brian O'Neill, on our MagPod Facebook group, said, unpopular opinion, this is my favorite studio album from the original run.
And
even Leonor was like, whoa.
She said, whoa.
Yeah. And then somebody else said, I'm pretty sure it was the first one I owned, so it has always been special.
Yeah.
And
then, this JT Carnahan, he said he was once asked by a handful of members of Five Iron what album he would want played in its entirety, getting back to Jason's voicemail about he would want Engines played in its entirety. And he said this one, to many groans from the band. Yeah, I mean, he says it's the most cohesive of the albums, which I definitely don't agree with. It's got a lot of theatrics and ups and downs, true, and variety that would lend itself really well to being performed live. It may not be my favorite, but it's certainly their most unique album. I think that's true.
Something can be unique and also not good,
True.
It has variety. It is unique. It is theatric and does have ups and downs, but it is anything but cohesive. I think this album is all over the place.
We used the word interesting a lot when we were talking about
it. Yeah. I think there would be some songs that would be interesting to see live, but
yeah,
I don't know. There are not too many songs that on here that I would necessarily care to see live in place of something else.
Right. I did just say I would like to begin the campaign for them to start playing the Phantom Mullet in their sets again. That would be fun.
For sure. No, I would 100% be into that. That would rule. Anything with heavy metal mica guitar.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, I was disappointed when it came out, but like you, it just never really, because I listened to it through a couple times, it just never really was one that was in my regular rotation.
Not super memorable.
No. And then, I mean, as far as what Jason was saying about their sets, like I definitely feel similarly. I would love to see some deeper cuts, and part of what I was excited about with going through all the albums for the pod was like listening to some of the stuff from the 2000s that I wasn't in love with initially and have enjoyed going back through. But yeah, I mean, no spoilers, but the album we're talking about today, pretty good album. And I would really like to hear a lot of those songs live. So
agreed. This and we'll get into a little bit later. We'll get into the question of the week that was posted about Boogaloo and rock with horns and the switch from ska to rock with horns.
Right.
But so Giants is definitely one of those songs that I think would be an interesting song to see live. Just see how they would.
I wonder if they could do it.
Yeah.
Oh man, so good. I mean, he sounds exactly like it. I'm glad that he's in on the joke with us.
Oh man, oh gosh.
So Reese confirmed, I think.
Reese, it's confirmed that Reese is the Phantom Cackler.
Phantom Cackler, yeah.
Oh,
I don't
man.
know, Phantom Cackler. What do you think about that? When you first heard that, did you feel like you had been accidentally recorded somehow or something?
He was stepping on your thing.
Yeah, I mean, he really sounds like that guy.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
So, kind of getting in. I love this so much.
It's so good.
I don't care if anybody else. This is our podcast, and we love it because it's about us.
That's right.
Oh man. So Danny Leary. Speaking of this transition of the end of third wave and moving into a new time of like what's happening now that ska has kind of like reached its zenith of popularity. He has some thoughts on that.
Hey guys, it's Dan Leary calling back. Danny Leary, whatever, same name. So I want to talk about the year 2000 and ska music. It's so funny the way, and Jason has empirical proof about this essentially. But about his what he mentioned on the podcast about how the year 2000 is pretty much like the end of third wave ska. The last time you mentioned that, when you had him on during the MXPX episodes, I was like, really? Is that true? And now, like, having thought about it more and having seen the ska documentary, I'm like, okay, I get it. By the year 2000, like, bands couldn't really make money anymore. It was like, that was the decline. But the thing for me is that 2000 is when I went, like, full tilt into ska. Like, I wasn't even, like, I knew about certain bands like Five Iron and Mighty Mighty Boss Tones leading up to that, but by 2000, I'm like going to the record store every weekend and buying every ska CD. I'm like actively looking for ska shows all the time. So like 2000 is when I'm becoming a major ska fan. So then to learn that it was like basically starting to crumble at that point is so funny to me, because I'm like, that I had no idea. And the analogy that I thought of is it's like the video game crash. Right? It's like when I was a kid, I had no idea what the video game crash was, because I was like, I just love video games and there's always video games around. And then like by the time I'm in my teens and 20s, I'm like, oh, there was this crash in the industry where the future of video games was meant there might not be anymore eventually. And I'm like, I had no idea about that when I was a kid. So essentially I'm like this like high schooler, just after high schooler, who's obsessed with ska in 2000. And like, that's apparently the end of it. And that's just not my experience. And also I was thinking about this, it's probably might be because I'm from Boston, and by 2000, and this might be like the exception that proves Jason's rule, right? Like Big D and the Kids Table had not even broken in 2000, and they were essentially my local ska band. Like they were starting to boom by the year 2000 in my eyes. Like they were constantly playing through, and they were becoming a national act with How It Goes, and the albums that followed that. So it's like I might have been in this one pocket where like ska wasn't dying. I don't know. But yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that, because it's just, I don't know, it somehow blows my mind to think how, I get it, like ska was dying all around the country. For some reason in my tiny world, it was just getting going. I don't know. Magpie Phillies.
There we go. Oh, there we
Yes.
go. Didn't want to cut it. Didn't want to cut that off. So, here's the thing. Like, I started college in 2002, and I was that stereotypical college kid. It was like freshman year, started growing my hair long, started like getting into, new music, trying to broaden my horizons. And it's not that I stopped listening to a lot of the music I did in high school. It's just that like I started really getting into other genres, and I really started listening to hip hop for the first time, and I started listening to metal a lot, like metalcore and really aggressive metal my freshman year. And so I think it's not that I stopped liking ska because it was not popular. Because like I feel like anytime I would throw on one of those old like Less Than Jake or Suicide Machines or Five Iron Records, I'm like, oh yeah, this is really great. I haven't listened to this in a while, and I'd be into it. But but for Danny, it was like that's when it started ramping up as other people were sort of shifting into another trend or another style of music.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably empirically true, as he was saying, that like by the end of the 90s, its bubble had kind of not burst, but shrunk significantly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could definitely be the case, like you were saying, Danny, that Southern California was an exception to that. I mean, I'm sure there was still a lot of ska bands coming out of that area that it never really went away. But yeah, it wasn't for me so much like ska, turning my back on that. It was more like what Jason was saying last week, where a lot of the bands that I'd been listening to around 2000 or the early 2000s started putting out albums that didn't sound like ska anymore. That, that shift generally from ska to rock with horns, and I just wasn't as into that. And so I just kind of fell off the ska bandwagon for the most part. But it's been cool in the last, 5-10 years to see some of that coming back. And I'm not going to say anything about Waves because I know that's controversial, but
especially Danny Leary he'll give us like 12 voicemails
right,
about the difference between, why ska needs to be broken into waves or whatever.
Right.
No other genre does that. It diminishes the legitimacy of whatever. Anyway, I want to play a voicemail. There's just a kind of a shift in tone here, but this is Jason Ariano left us a voicemail. This is a real podcast listener when he picks up on how we're doing things and he's thinking ahead. He's proactive in his pod listening. So props to this guy. He was thinking, he's like, okay, so with their 5, they're looking at, last week we looked at 2000 because the album was released in 2000. And this week we're talking about 2001. And so he's thinking, okay, what are they going to talk about in 2001? They're probably going to talk about 9/11. So he's right, and John and I will get into that a little later. But I wanted to play Jason's voicemail, sort of talking about his memories of that day, and then John and I will just sort of pick up on that a little bit later in the pod.
Hey guys, it's Jason Ariano calling again. I noticed the next album is 2001. And I know in your guys' 5 that happened during that time, most likely you guys will be talking about 9/11. For those of us you guys are a few years younger than I am, but we were all young adults at that time, and I think it was probably one of the most life-changing things, or the most life-changing thing that our country's ever been through at that time. And I just want to share my memory of 9/11. Living here out on the West Coast in California, I remember around 6 in the morning, my mom pounding on my bedroom door, telling me to wake up because our country's about to go to war. And I just thought my mom was going crazy because she over-exaggerates a lot. I was like, Mom, whatever. So I turned on the TV, and my first thought was, holy shit. And I remember watching it, and the buildings are still up when I turned on. And I remember watching them show it, and the broadcasters didn't see it at the time, but I told my mom, oh my gosh, there's bodies falling out the building. And it was really life-changing for me. To this day. I'm still, whenever I go out to places with large crowds, the back of my mind, I'm always thinking it could happen. Whenever I go to a sporting event or anything like that, or a concert, I always think, wow, we could get attacked. And we've all been changed because of it, because now wherever we go, whether it's a sporting event or a concert, we go through metal detectors. That's because of 9/11. But it was definitely a changing experience for all of us, and day that none of us will ever forget. Especially, I was only 23 years old at the time, so I was young, adult. I think you guys were probably late teens, early 20s. So it's definitely something that we will never forget. So, hey, thank you guys for a good job. I know we should put it down on the podcast, but I know most likely you guys will be talking about 9/11 as you guys talk about the next album. So take care. Have a good one.
Thank you for that, Jason.
I
mean, it is a very somber thing to discuss, and I think, you know, one of his points that I will want to bring up later when we talk about it in our 5 is his point about anytime we're out in a big public space, anytime we are at a movie or at a sporting event or something like that, you know, and I think that's precisely what terrorism is supposed to do and accomplishes, is that it's supposed to make you feel that way. And in some ways, like I don't think about some big terrorist organization coming and bombing a movie theater. I think about somebody with a gun.
Right.
That's what I think about. I don't think I don't think of some nefarious Middle Eastern plot with planes. I think somebody with, you know, a vendetta against, you know, we'll get into it, but that's just But anyway, we're gonna do one of our classic hard left turns from something super somber into another kind of somber conversation, because we got a voicemail. We got a couple voicemails today, not today, but for this episode, relating to Fahrenheit, the song on all the hype about Freddie Mercury and Reese wrestling with the idea of homosexuality and sexuality in the church. And so Danny Stairs left a voicemail, but it was like all garbled and like I couldn't understand most of it. So that was kind of an unfortunate thing. But then Danny Leary left us some voicemails, and he was like, I don't know, this is kind of hard to do in voicemail form, and it's kind of hard to just have like a one-way dialogue about something that has kind of nuances, and he was wanting to make some larger points. So I thought, you know what, why not just have him on the pod to discuss this and some other stuff. So Danny, are you there? Can you hear us? Us?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Yeah.
Hooray! Yeah.
I took the headphones out. I'm not sure if that helped or coincidence.
We can hear you fine. Right? No.
Okay, good. Cool. Hello. What were you talking about? I have no idea.
We were talking about 9/11, so perfect entry point.
Yeah. So
I have 5-iron 9/11 memories.
Ooh.
Is that okay? I don't know. I couldn't hear anything you guys were talking about before.
Well,
That's not what I was calling about.
No, I know.
So we were. I gave a pretty decent intro into you talking about calling and trying to leave messages and nuances,
right?
Like a nuanced position on like Fahrenheit and how that really wasn't working out well.
Yeah,
so,
it was like.
I mean, I thought you were making some good points, but I think with something like this, it's easier to like dialogue about it than it is to just try and just shout it into a voicemail system.
Exactly, because I was like, especially if I'm saying something and I'm wrong, or I'm saying something that maybe you can cue me that I'm being misunderstood. Like that's the advantage of actually talking about it. But if I'm just talking in a voicemail, like there's a good chance I'd say something really awful that I didn't
and then get canceled.
When you're talking about a subject like this. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
did you actually play the voicemails?
No.
The voicemails?
No, I did not
Good.
play the voicemails. I figured it'd just be easier to say, Danny, kind of share your thoughts about what you were thinking about the song, because you said that you thought that we hit on a lot of the points that you would agree with and would think about, but you had some other thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, what you guys said was like, I thought it was all completely spot on. And then I even re-listened to that segment knowing I was going to talk to you today. And it was, you kind of brushed up against this when I re-listened, but didn't exactly say it. My thoughts on that song is like, I think it deserves just a little bit of credit. And I don't want this to get mixed up with me saying I agree with the love the sin or hate the sin part.
Right.
Because that's sort of the biggest problem with the song. Like maybe if you took that part out, you could almost saying it's this like striking, accusation at the church about homophobia and stuff like that. It's the love the sin or hate the sin part that is that is incorrect.
Yes.
But when I think about that song, the thing about it for me is that like I was raised in churches, with institutionalized homophobia, just like flat out homosexuality is a sin and all of that. So, but practically speaking, I didn't meet an openly gay person and have a conversation until I was like 23, right? So I didn't actually have like homophobia in practice. It was just like, I've been told being gay is a sin. And if I see, stuff that goes against that in TV or movies, then I get a little offended and I don't really know why, because I was kind of like taught to think that way. And so for me, that song, that's not like some big beacon to me breaking my way of thinking with that, but it was definitely one small piece of it to ultimately like break away from the way I was raised and realize like people living their lives is not a sin. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so the credit I just kind of give that song is to be the song that it is, with the one bridge that is problematic as it is, to even be in Christian bookstores telling possibly kids who are raised that, probably in ways worse than I was, where maybe they're like flat out, the churches I went to, they weren't preaching about homosexuality every week. It was just like an underlying theme. But like, what if kids, in 2000, what if kids later on, even today, are raised to like flat out think that homosexuals and alternative lifestyles are the enemy and they're there to like destroy us and they're so sinful? To have a song like this, even though it's, has that bridge, it's like, it kind of like, I might kind of crack the armor a little bit. Yeah. And you kind of brushed up against that, but when I re-listened, but it was definitely like one small thing that kind of opened my thinking with the way I'd been raised to believe, Yeah,
I think that's totally fair. I mean, we've talked a lot about how their songs on any number of topics were sort of like eye-openers for a generation of church-going kids, like that this is their first kind of window into justice thinking. And I think,
and just questioning,
yeah, totally.
everything.
Right. So it might not line up as neatly, the song, with those other ones, but I think it's totally fair to think of this as one that could have for sure got some kids wrestling with things and thinking about things differently.
And I was kind of dancing around this, but also like whatever Reese was going through at the time might have paralleled the kind of thinking that I was growing in.
Sure.
Right.
The realizations that I still had in the future. So when I, to hear that Reese is flat out ashamed of the song, like that's totally valid and all.
Yeah.
But like, I think like, he took that moment in his life where he just, and who knows what kind of thing he was raised to believe, if anything specifically, especially because they're like a band that's doing Christian festivals and like, really entrenched in that world. It's not like they're some like a band like MXPX who might be might be sold on Christian bookstore shelves, but they're kind of doing their own thing in the regular music industry. Fiverr and Frenzy was like smack dab in the middle, like surrounded at all times, doing church shows.
Yeah.
Right up to the end. Like I would see them half the time at church shows, and that's part of the reason they broke up, right? Like,
right,
because they were half doing church. They got more money at church shows than they got at rock venues. So it's like they were surrounded by people in a mentality that was much worse than what's presented ultimately in that song. So to sort of for him to be thinking being homosexuality is still a sin in his eyes at that time, but maybe we shouldn't hate them for that. You know what I mean? Like it feels like a half measure from the viewpoint of what we kind of know as a society now, or what we know as like people who have maybe turned away from that Christian world and what we think now. But it feels like a real full measure if you think back to the mindset that maybe, you were used to in churches at the time.
Yeah. I think the whole like love the sinner, hate the sin thing was used as a kind of progressive idea within like super conservative circles at the time, where it was like, how can we still love people? Which, as Andrew and I got into, you probably can't really, but like, I appreciate the idea that they're trying to say, how can we be actively less hateful to people?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it's also, I see that kind of as a way of shutting down the conversation. If you can just wrap it up nice and neat and say, it's almost like saying agree to disagree, and then you just move on. If you say, I love the sin or hate the sin, I don't hate anybody. I don't hate anybody. Right. I just think all of these people are going to hell and are going to be tortured for eternity. That's all. I'm trying to save you. I'm trying to give you the good news. And then it's like, this is how a lot of people were indoctrinated with what they think of as love. They're preaching the good news that you're going to hell and you're a terrible sinner. They feel was like a loving directive to say like, you're gay, that's a sin, you're going to hell, and I need to tell you about it.
I 100% agree. Like it's like, I guess the door could go both ways. Like if you are kind of on the fence about whether or not you're homophobic and you're Christian, like you could be like, oh, love the sinner, hate the sin. They are sinning, but that's not what I think. I guess now I'm thinking out loud.
Even past the point when this record came out, I still had problematic views about homosexuality.
Right.
Well into 2003, 2004, like I was still wrestling with it. And I think I've admitted this on the pod that like I believed and said not so good things about, gay people when I was in middle school and high school, because as to your point, Danny, this is what we were taught. And so for somebody to just even the slightest bit shed a little humanity on these people, to like you said again, put a little crack in the armor, just sort of just break it down a little bit to get you thinking like, oh, this person, this Christian who I respect believes this. Is that okay to believe? And it just gets you thinking outside of your narrow idea of what a faith should look like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I challenge anybody to find another Christian band that talks about Native American genocide more than Five Iron.
It's not going to happen.
I mean, it's not going to happen. And wrestling with these kinds of issues. There's another lyrical issue that we're going to get into in another episode for Brave Saint Saturn, where he has another song where I feel like he's trying to do the same thing.
Oh,
and
which one?
It's the song Under Bridges.
Oh, okay.
Which I think has all of the best intentions, but I think lyrically it comes off as a little like, when you think about it, you're like, oh, are you comparing homosexuality to all these other sort of are you saying it's on par with like being a rapist? You know,
Right.
So, but we'll get into that on the Brave Saint Saturn episode. But
it was actually I talked about this on our podcast, but
what podcast is that?
Sadie Hawkins Pod.
If people want it,
at gmail.com, Instagram and Twitter, Sadie Hawkins Pod, phone number 402-95-SADIE.
Perfect.
That time you couldn't boo me. You're like, oh, well, we can actually see
it. All in good fun.
But when we did our episode about their song God, about Reliant K's song God, we talked about like our history in the kind of churches that we grew up in.
Yeah.
And for me, it was actually the view of homosexuality that I was raised in, and then thinking about it for myself, and then actually making my first like openly gay friend in college, that was like what started to make me really question the things that I'd been raised to believe, and you know, the things I was indoctrinated to think had to go hand in hand with my faith.
Mm-hmm.
Because then like the thing that started to not make sense to me was exactly that. It's like I was taught to think that homosexuality is a sin on par with things like rape or these awful things. And I'm like, how does that make sense? And then it was ultimately like these like thought experiments that they'll give you in church, where it's like, you know, if a murderer has done all these horrible things, but he comes to the Lord in the last minute of his life and repents, then he goes to heaven. But I always got the sense in all the different, in the churches I went to, and also the private schools I went to, that's like, if a homosexual prayed for forgiveness, like, well, that's not going to work because you're still gay. It's like, you can't be like, they, without saying it, I would feel like they'd say, you know, you literally can't be gay and believe in Christ as your savior. That somehow that was the only sin, quote unquote sin. I don't believe it's a sin. Just want to make that clear. But somehow that's the only sin in their eyes that would like invalidate your salvation. Or like God would cancel it out. That's like, I had this one teacher.
That's a pretty weak God that they created for themselves.
So that was the beginning of me seeing like, well, people, you know, it's love. It's not a sin because it's love. And then it's like, you know, seeing like, how is that on par with all this other stuff? It didn't make any sense. So that was really the start of me, you know, thinking for myself in that way.
Do you know the Episcopal presiding bishop, Michael Curry?
Don't know him personally.
Don't know him personally, but he's who gave the sermon at Meghan Markle and Harry's wedding, and he has a quote that says, "If it's not about love, then it's not about God."
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's an interesting. It's kind of what you were just saying, essentially, that, you know, this is two people who love each other, and we need more love in this damn world. Okay, so if people want to care about each other and extend love to another human being, then I will co-sign that every time.
Agreed.
Yep. And hey, is Jess around? Because speaking of, hey Jess.
So we're playing Witcher 3 right now.
Oh, nice. Because I remember listening to that God episode and kind of Jess's, because if I'm thinking about the same episode, and there was just, I remember she was saying something about one of the leaders in the youth group that was saying some like questionable, problematic stuff, and then it was about the movie, like maybe a movie that she really liked, Sin City, and she was like, nope, I'm done with this. See you guys.
It's in the title. It's called Sin City. I can't believe Jessica wasn't on her side.
I know.
Like,
I mean,
this is
clearly
a movie filled with sin. It's an entire city filled with sin.
It's black and white.
Was it in Las Vegas? Was that where it was based?
No, it's based in the city.
It was.
I was like, I don't know how to engage with that.
I can give you the.
It was a layup
answer.
joke, guys. It was a stupid joke.
Well, if you're familiar with the works of Frank Miller,
oh boy,
it's based in the city.
This is another episode of the pod.
He was canceled. Well, speaking of your podcast
and Five Iron,
we should tease an upcoming collab.
Yes, we need to figure out when to do that.
Yeah,
because we go song by song through every Reliant K song,
and
there's the 5 Iron Frenzy is Dead or Dying, and we want to have you guys on that episode, and especially because you're just like one more episode away from the breakup, right?
Well, TBD. We were trying to do some scheduling stuff with that pod. So we have a very special episode next week. So we're just going to tease that.
Some time.
Yeah, we might have to. We're going to have to buy some time, perhaps. So,
fortunately, there's also a bunch of, EPs and cheeses and spin-off bands, and we got content for a while.
Speaking of Christian bookstores and being lame, how they like changed the name of Cheeses of Nazareth to just Cheeses.
Just Cheeses, yeah.
Because they're a bunch of cowards.
And now they don't want the Cheeses album on streaming.
Right.
But when it was on streaming, it had the unedited album cover. And I was like, that's really cool. And I wanted to like print that and slip it into my CD case like it always should have been.
Oh, man. Good times. Well, we will make this crossover happen sooner rather than later.
Yep.
Cool.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts, man.
No problem. I was also at the what's his name? Jason.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When Jason mentioned last week that he was at the last 5 Iron show.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess I could have run into him, but I didn't know who he was because I was there too. And Reliant K also played that show.
Oh man, worlds colliding.
Yeah. So we can have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about when we have that crossover episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it.
Oh wait, do we want to talk about your 9/11 5 Iron memory?
Oh right. Well,
or is that too weird?
And which is also Reliant K related. It's just that I never realized how close it was, but the Electric Youth Tour, which started in September of 2001. I remember. I've always remembered, and I went to that tour for 2 shows, and I've always remembered how they had this thing prepared to talk about. It's like no, everyone's afraid and everyone's dealing with 9/11. We almost canceled the tour, and we realized we really wanted to be here with all of you. That's like what Reese said, right? Mm-hmm. And I've never forgotten that. But then I found the tour list, and I'm like, oh, it was like September 15th. It was like days after, or like the 16th or something. Like that's when I saw the show. Like, and I was like, I guess it really, because in my mind, like over time, I'm like, oh, was it really worth mentioning? Wasn't it a little bit later, a couple months later? Like, no, it was like less. It was just about a week after 9/11. I saw Reliant K and 5 Iron Frenzy twice that weekend, and both times they didn't like dwell on it. They were just like, we're happy to be here with everyone. We hope everyone's doing all right, and it's a scary time and all that. And then they probably launched into, you probably shouldn't move here or something.
Yeah, I think I've talked about this on the pod before too, but I also saw them on that tour. And when they came to Chicago, I'm seeing on the internet, it was October 7th, which is when we had like just started bombing Iraq in retaliation.
Right.
And Reese like paused between songs and was like, so we started bombing Iraq tonight or something like that. And like a bunch of people in the audience cheered and were like, woo. And he was like, I'm not sure that's what I was going for.
Right.
And just like kind of talked through feeling complicated about it. So yeah, I have strong memories of that specific time and having 5 Iron guide us through it as well. So that's interesting. Anyway, thanks again, Danny.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, and we will, have you on our show too. Jessica's sick, that's why she's not jumping on.
All right, feel better.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry, Jess.
Hi.
I'm sorry, Jess. Feel better.
And we're supposed to record tomorrow, but she's got to get better.
Hey, well, you obviously weren't on at the very beginning, but John is also sick and powering through. So
together.
This is a professional. This is a professional.
I pulled it together for the pod.
Oh, man. Danny, what an asshole.
Everyone go subscribe to Sadie Hawkins pod and check it out.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks,
all right.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
See you, buddy.
Talk to you later. Bye. All right. That guy.
He's a good guy.
That's a good guy. I mean, Danny was, speaking of other OG Mag Pod people, Danny has been here from the beginning. Not the first time he's been on the pod. We had a standalone ep talking to him about MXPX memes back on
right. His other side hustle.
Yeah, he's got hella hustles, man. This guy, I don't know how he does it.
He's also overheard at punk shows.
Yeah,
that account.
That's got like tens of thousands.
Yeah.
And it's what's weird is he told me, he's like, it started out as like another meme account. Like the overheard stuff that he first started posting was fake. And then people started sending him real
that's
stuff.
Funny. Huh.
And then he transitioned it into like real things. So, and then everybody started, like all these people started following it. So which is kind of nuts.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so before we get into the 5, John, do you want to play a game?
Yes, I do.
Awesome. Okay. So today we are talking 2001. We just entered the new millennium. And in a time before the ubiquitous smartphone and smart speakers, the burgeoning tech industry was churning out all kinds of devices and gadgets in hopes that they would become the next big trend. So I'm going to describe a series of either timely turn of the century items or a tech or smart product from 2001, and you need to tell me if the item I'm describing is real or something that I just made up.
Okay, I can't wait.
Okay. All right. So here's the first item. Are you ready?
I think so.
So I'm going to read you the item and then a description.
Okay.
About it.
Just say whether it's
and then
real.
Yes. So I'm going to read you the product name, some copy, and a price.
Okay.
For the item. Okay. Sterapin. Worried about terrorists polluting the water supply? Fear not, patriotic Americans. Powered by 2 AA batteries, the cordless Sterapin uses ultraviolet light to decontaminate a 16-ounce container of water in about a minute.
Wow.
Its maker claims Sterapin will kill 99.99% of bacteria and viruses found in water for a mere $199. Is this a real tech smart gadget, or is this something I just made up?
I think the world is weird enough that is real.
You think it's real?
Yeah.
You're right. It is. It is real.
So just in case any drink of water anybody had might have been poisoned by a terrorist. That's the idea.
I altered some of the copy a little bit, but that was part of the selling point.
Okay.
Was because I altered some of the copy because I didn't want there to be like copyright or I was just ripping off. Ripping it off, and so you better not be looking these up as I read them to you, buddy.
I am not.
Okay, but
this is like bar trivia rules.
There you go. Exactly. All right. This product is called Lip Biotics. It's that time of year. Your coworkers are sick. Everyone on your commute seems to be sick, and now you're worried about catching something and passing it on to your family. You know what that's like, John.
Yep, indeed.
So no more kisses for your husband and kids until it passes, right? Wrong. Introducing Lip Biotics, the first prescription lip balm with a full dose of antibiotics and a low dose of antiviral at every tube. With every application, Lip Biotics kills 99% of bacteria on your lips and reduces the chances of transferring cold and flu viruses through saliva by up to 70%. Formulated by the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, with a partnership with the CDC, Lip Biotics outperformed a regular medicated lip balm in a 6-month trial. Cost is around $30 a tube. Is this real or just some shit I made up?
It seems plausible, real.
It is made up. I just made this shit up.
That seems possible. Once you said the thing about other lip balms, is that real? Are there like medicated lip balms? Is that a thing?
I mean, there are medicated lip balms that are like, it has like menthol
to make your lips heal, but not to
like for cold sores,
diseases. Yeah,
no, okay. I don't know. I some of this. So here's the thing. I spent some time like looking up online, just like putting smart in front of a noun. There is so much stupid shit out there.
What was this one called again?
Lip biotics.
Lip biotics. I mean, in retrospect, maybe I should have gone false, but you sold me.
All right. So 1 for 2. Next, smart shirt. Can't tell if you're having a heart attack or just hit the bench press a little too hard at Gold's Gym? Why don't you ask your t-shirt what's going on? Introducing Smart Shirt, made of a soft, washable fabric with optical and electrical fibers woven into it. The Smart Shirt records your body's vitals, like heart and respiration rates, body temperature, and calories burned. Information can then be sent wirelessly to doctors or personal trainers. Military-specific Smart Shirts would help locate wounded soldiers and transmit their specific wounds. $175 for a Smart Shirt. Is this a real tech device or some shit I just made up?
I mean, again, seems plausible, but I'm going fake.
It is real.
Oh man, it's so hard to tell.
I know. This is why it's so. There's so many things that are just like, and some of this stuff was like, these were like highlighted on lists of like
the best,
like tech gadgets, and I'm just like, and it's like, there's probably a reason that we've never heard of some of these things because, a Smart Shirt. Come on, guys.
Did you tweak that copy?
I tweaked it a little.
Okay. Because I was like, why don't you ask your t-shirt what's going on? I was like, this is fake.
That
was real.
That was almost word for word what the copy said.
Amazing.
So, but like also, yeah, anyway. All right. Dockers mobile pants. You're about to head out the door. You have your wallet, your car keys, your house keys, your cell phone, your Palm Pilot, your digital camera, your MP3 player. Short of borrowing one of your wife's purses, what do you do with all your gadgets? New from Dockers, the Dockers mobile pant. These pants combine the classic look of a tailored slack, but with a modern twist. Just inside its waist seams and hidden behind zippers on the legs are 3 extra mesh-lined pockets for stashing all your tech gadgets. Now, if only someone would combine all these things into a single device, we wouldn't need all these pockets. $52 for a pair of Dockers mobile pants. Is this real or some shit I made up?
You really have me questioning myself now. I think it's plausible. I'm going to say real.
This is real.
Okay.
Dockers mobile pants were a thing.
So bizarre.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out what these would look like. Because the copy that said just inside its waist seams are hidden behind zippers on the legs are 3 extra mesh-lined pockets. So I was trying to figure out like what that meant and what that would look like.
Right.
And I'm also trying to imagine what it would be like walking with all these, with like your Palm Pilot and your phone. Right. It's like stuff like just like brushing and like moving in your pants.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it would be very comfortable.
That sounds tough.
Yep. All right. So you have 2 out of, I think you have 2 out of 4.
Okay. Not bad.
So, failing, but this is our last one.
Okay.
This is the Robo Rachel.
Ooh.
Have trouble talking to girls? Sure, we all do. But how are you supposed to meet someone when you don't know what to say? Enter the Robo Rachel. Introduced at CES in 2001, the Robo Rachel is an interactive robot created to assist people with social anxiety and low self-confidence to help them gain skills they need to talk to potential partners. Robo Rachel comes programmed with over 100 conversation topics and responds to specific voice commands such as Hi, Rachel. How are you? And what do you do for fun? A list of voice commands are provided with updates and software patches already in the works. Heath Klein, lead MIT programmer and developer, noted that research was done to determine the specific areas the specific problem areas most men had when talking to women, and this influenced the design and programming. When asked about the name, Klein said it was inspired by Jennifer Aniston's character from Friends, someone many men listed as their ideal woman. $1,499 for the Robo Rachel. Is this a real tech gadget or some shit I made up?
Because men are men, I'm going to say real.
It's some shit I made up.
Oh, man. That's totally plausible. Robo Rachel really seems like she could have existed.
Yeah. It also, I was going based on... there were a lot of stupid robots at this time. So
it's a good album title for somebody.
A lot of stupid robots. Yeah. All right. So
I failed.
2 out of 5. I mean, that was.
This is one of your tougher ones, I guess.
It was. It's tough because let's be honest, a lot of early 2000s inventions were really stupid. But I don't know. Maybe we can look online to try and find some Dockers mobile pants and a smart shirt.
I hope so.
And then we'll just have the whole outfit, and I can hang out with Robo Rachel.
Perfect. Oh man.
Oh god.
Who needs a Robo Rachel is the singer of Pre-Ex-Girlfriend.
Oof,
that
really
guy could have. That guy could have used some Robo Rachel interactions.
Yeah, he didn't even ask her what she liked to do for fun.
Yeah, what the hell? Amazing.
Should we go from that into the 5?
Let's do it.
All right. This is the 5. Drop it.
Yo, me and Bobby, we was walking down the street.
Watch your profanity.
Yo, we didn't have nothing to.
Watch your
We had our
profanity.
pants on, but yo, these ain't my pants. I'll get them off now.
Watch your profanity.
I'm trying to think of what I did last
Yeah, I am
week.
too.
Was it? It was Glengarry Glen Ross
Yeah.
and Chris Farley
Right.
from the decaffeinated Colombian coffee crystal.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Classic.
Yeah, stupid. We have a lot of good music in 2001.
It's true.
I was really pumped this week to look up 2001 albums and listen to so many of them over and over again and find out, man, they really some of these albums really hold up in my estimation. So some of the albums that I have on my list, got to throw out our boys MXPX, the Renaissance EP.
Oh yeah, good call.
For OG fans who listen to this, listen to that episode, got it that same goodie because John,
Goody got it.
Goody got it. Some 41's All Killer No Filler, Jimmy Eat World's Bleed American, which is a banger from beginning to end.
Sure
Every
is.
song on that record rules. It still holds up. Speaking of problematic people that I still, whose music I'm still into, I have two of those albums on this list. Brand New's Your Favorite Weapon, which this came out in 2001, but I first heard it in 2002 at my freshman year of college and was immediately into it. Dashboard Confessional, Places You've Come to Fear the Most. This will come into place in my second of my 5. But that album, I can put it on, sing it from beginning to end. I love it unironically.
Is that Your Hair Is Everywhere era?
Yeah, Screaming Infidelities.
Yeah. Okay.
Bouncing Souls, How I Spent My Summer Vacation. Propaganda, Today's Empires, Tomorrow's Ashes, which is an album I discovered a little bit later, but it's the album that started my love affair with Propaganda. Daft Punk's Discovery, Reliant K's The Anatomy of the Tongue-in-Cheek, The Strokes' Is This It?
Yep.
And the other problematic fave, Ryan Adams' Gold.
Yeah, good call. Why did he have to be who he is?
Why is he the way that he is? He truly is the Toby of the music industry.
Yeah, I have a pretty similar list for my 5. So we talked last week about Radiohead's Kid A.
Right.
The next year was Radiohead's Amnesiac, which, I talked about before that when Kid A came out, I was kind of like needed a little bit of time to process it. Similar, it took even longer actually with me for Amnesiac because I was like, oh, this just feels like leftovers of Kid A type stuff, which it was. They recorded all at the same time. But once I like got into it, I really love that album a lot. I think there's some really beautiful compositions kind of hidden under some bleeps and bloops. Anyway, I also have The Strokes' Is This It? That feels a very 2001 album to me.
Yeah.
I also have Jimmy Eat World's Bleed American, which was changed to be self-titled post 9/11, right?
Yeah, that's another problematic time in culture and media,
right.
Which we'll discuss a little later when we get into the 9/11 section. But
right,
yeah.
My other 2, so White Stripes, White Blood Cells. That's when I first got into them. That was a big record for me at that time. And then Fugazi's The Argument. That was like, I remember when it came out, kind of controversy in the Fugazi world for being like, some people thought it was like too poppy. But I really liked it. Still a good album. So anyway.
We also, and this is kind of getting back to my point that I was making earlier about like when I entered college in 2002, that I started expanding my musical tastes, and you only have so much time to listen to so much music in a day. And so it was also around that time in college, I listened to Bjork for the first time, and Vespertine had come out in 2001. And Vespertine was the first Bjork album that I heard. And I had texted you today and I'm like, oh man, how good is Vespertine? And you were kind of unsure so what would you say your favorite Bjork record?
For me, it's like the 90s albums where I was so in on all of those as they were happening. And then like, 2000s.
So like Post or
I think probably Post is my favorite. Debut, a close second. I really really like Homogenic too. I think all of them are great. Those are a little more like, they're still weird, but they're kind of like bite-sized pop song versions of weird Bjork. And I think in the 2000s she starts going on this journey towards just like, you described it as lush, which is correct. These just like long orchestral, there's just a lot going on, and I don't dislike it at all. I love all her albums, but like it definitely becomes less sort of traditional pop after the 90s and goes into weirder, grander territory. So it never was at the same level as me for the first few. But.
And I think my heart was prepared to find Bjork at that time, because I also discovered Sigur Rós around the same time when I started college, and those long, lush, weird kind of orchestral Icelandic, albums are just like, all right, I'm up for this, whatever.
Totally.
So I think it just hit me in the right spot.
Yeah, if you're of the frame of mind to receive Bjork, you can follow her wherever she will go. I know that's not everybody's jam, but she's one of my like top all-time faves.
She's a pioneer for sure.
She was like my number. So I always said like Bjork and Tom Waits were the 2 that I wanted to see in concert most.
Yeah,
both of whom like never toured at least to Chicago, and she finally played Pitchfork, and I want to say like 2014 or something like that, and I went, and it was amazing, but her short was like 45 minutes long because they had to cut it short due to like thunderstorms, and I was like, I've been waiting so long for this. Why does it have to?
Was this the year? What was the year that the Foo Fighters played in like a torrential downpour? Because I remember there was
at Lala, or where were
maybe
they?
It was Lala.
I don't think they played Pitchfork, but
maybe not Pitchfork. There was something in Chicago where the Foo Fighters were. It was like this epic, like unbelievable downpour, and Dave Grohl could not have looked more punk rock and hardcore as it just was like. Yeah, so I want to find some video.
Yeah.
Of that. So it is just sheets of rain coming down, and he is in a black shirt, and he's just like, drenched, and it's just like, and he's not one of those guys that's going to be like, oh, I can't play because it's not the perfect condition. It needs to be 73 and sunny and no clouds in the sky, and I need my my brown M&Ms or whatever.
Now, what Bjork said was, she was like, I wish I could keep playing, but they're telling me we have to stop. So anyway, I bet she would have committed to it too.
Yeah. Well, I'm not trying to throw.
Wasn't it your Bjork impression?
No. So no, I wasn't trying to bus toss. I was just saying Dave Grohl is not a
yes. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Hey, anyway, you know where I saw Foo Fighters play once?
Wrigley Field?
No, Best Buy.
What? What year was this?
We keep talking about how Best Buy was the cool place to be. Or no, we were talking about Circuit City, I guess. Or wait, where did Best Buy was where you got your
Best
MXPX.
Buy was where I got MXPX, and Best Buy is also where Brian got his 5 iron CDs.
And it's where I saw Foo Fighters
on Rain Road too. Did you see him at Rain Road?
No, man, I was not living here yet.
Oh, was this in Minneapolis?
It was in like Roseville, which is a suburb of St. Paul.
Yeah. Weird.
Yeah, I don't know what they were doing. It was like an acoustic set, but I know we waited a while to see them. Good story. This would have been like this has been
an episode of John Potter's Pod Fodder.
Yeah, not a particularly good one. All right, what's your number two?
So this I said related to Dashboard. So I think I can't remember the exact timeline. It could have been on last episode that I could have talked about this, or it could have been I just split the difference because I wanted to talk about Dashboard and the Places album because it came out in 2001, and the time of my life when I was as emo, just like I was just like reaching levels of peak emo, and so I was 15, probably 15 when I had my first kiss. Ooh. And it was like with a girl who was a little older than me.
Hey now.
And hey-o, boing, sound effect. Auga. And yeah, so she was my first kiss and we were making out a lot, and it was pretty great. However,
sounds good.
Yeah, I was, as you know, because I was a 15, 16-year-old kid and a Christian struggling with like, should we be doing this? Is this the right thing to do? I really want to like make out with you and like, but this could lead to more. And is that right? And so I just started stupidly getting into my own head about like sex and pleasure and what's the moral thing to do, and so then like and I think I was just like scared about the intensity of everything, so we like stopped seeing each other, and then I eventually really came to regret it and feel bad about how everything went down, and I remember listening to this Dashboard album, and listening to the song This Ruined Puzzle, and feeling like the line was like, does he ever get the girl? And I'm just like, I don't. I never get the girl. Such
sad times.
It was.
That's peak emo.
That was very emo. Yeah. So,
well,
there's that
things
story.
got better.
Did they?
I mean,
did they though?
Yeah. Well, what didn't get much better for me either was I started college in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
I really let loose in Chicago. I was just like, got this whole big city to myself, going to see shows by myself all over the city on my own. And so when I said, I was just trying to make a transition there, but when I said things didn't get better for me, what I was alluding to is I went to a U2 concert at the United Center in, probably October 2001. And it was the tour for the record we talked about last week, All That You Can't Leave Behind. And I was like, I got to go see him. And it was great. I went by myself like immediately after moving to Chicago as an 18-year-old to, United Center, far away from where our college was. And afterward, I did not know how to get home. I was like navigating public transit, but poorly. So I thought if I got on the blue line of the L, and got off at Kedzie, that then I could catch a bus on Kedzie and take that to where we lived, which was like way, way north on Kedzie.
Right.
That turned out not to be the case. And I had kind of a near-death experience. It's a whole thing. There was
You're just gonna gloss over that near-death experience part?
Well, I'll briefly say a homeless man saved me from a pimp.
This is, if there isn't ever a time for you to not just like
gloss over something.
Just gloss over something.
This
So
is
what was the pimp trying to do? Was the pimp trying to like make you a John and like connect you with one of his girls, or what was it? What was the situation?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, so
he was like, "You looking for a good time, or what?" Was
there's other people involved as well. So
okay,
yeah. Let's just for people who aren't hyper local, which is most people,
right?
Getting off the train at the Kedzie stop on the Blue Line, and it was like midnight or 1 a.m. or whatever on a weeknight as like an 18-year-old white kid. It's that's like Lawndale-ish. Not the most safe neighborhood. And immediately after getting off, there were two who I learned were sex workers who asked me if I either was looking to buy drugs or was selling drugs. And once they figured out that I wasn't doing either of those things, they were confused about why I was there. I was like, I'm just trying to catch the bus. And they were like, well, are you looking for a good time? And started like kind of pressuring me. And I was just like, no. And I was trying to walk to the gas station so I could like take out some money on my ATM card to catch a bus or something. I don't know. There was another bad decision in there somewhere. And they followed me to the gas station. They didn't like that I was like being rude or something. So then I left the gas station, and there was a very, very tall man who said, I heard you were disrespecting my ladies.
Oh boy.
And I was like, no, sir. And then this homeless man who had been at the gas station with me was like, no, he's with me. We're going over here. And started like just walking me down the street. And I was like, I don't know if anything's going to be better with this guy, but probably better than the other guy. And he was like, boy, it's lucky I came along. And I was like, what do you think would have happened if I didn't? He's like, you would have gotten beat bad. And I was like,
holy shit.
So I was like, I'm just trying to get to the Kedzie bus. And he's like, where are you trying to go? And I was like Albany Park. And he's like, you're never going to get there. Here, you have to walk all the way over here to catch this bus because that runs all night. Anyway, he walked me to where I needed to go. He was like trying to get me to have him come stay with me. And I was trying to explain I lived in a dorm and I couldn't do that. And then like the cops stopped and they were like, is everything okay? And I was like, this bus goes the right way, right? And they're like, yeah. And then the guy was like, why did you ask the cops? Don't you believe me? And I was just like, oh man. So anyway.
Oh my gosh.
It was quite an ordeal. Poor little white Johnny from Minnesota just having a tough time. Anyway, it all worked out.
Oh man, That is the opposite of John Potter's Pot Fodder. That is a great story.
That's something, all right.
Oh man, I'm glad you did not get your ass kicked by a pimp.
Me too. Yeah,
but I think the real question is why were you disrespecting his ladies?
I mean, I was really trying not to be. I'm not sure how it came off quite that way.
That you didn't have sex with them, probably. I mean,
yeah, I think more it was like, this kid is an easy mark.
Let's beat him up and take his money.
Yeah, like, what is he doing here? Let's leverage this somehow.
Right.
Anyway.
Oh man. If you had your mullet, they wouldn't have messed with you.
That's true. Yeah, should have worn my acid wash jeans. Anyway,
so why don't we transition from that into sharing, just because I don't want to end on 9/11.
Right. Okay.
So, and we don't need to like talk about it like at length, but I just felt like it was worth just kind of talking about like what was going on with us at that time. So I was, while you were a senior or freshman at North Park at this time, I was a senior in high school, and this was during, I think during second period. And I was working so I was in a class that helped produce the morning announcements. Cool. At our school, we had televised morning announcements, and so there were some people that worked the cameras and other people that like helped like cue up the visuals. I helped cue up the visuals and do like some of the wipes and that sort of stuff for the morning announcements. And but then also we had time in the class where we would go and like we would create intros for the morning announcements that would air, when kids were sitting in class, and they would have something on the TVs before the announcements started. Mm-hmm. And so we would go out and during the period and like film stuff and just kind of come up with something creative for the morning announcements. And mine were always sort of weird and surreal. And there are somebody that I did a lot of these with, put them online on YouTube. So you can see videos of 17-year-old me at this point, 17-year-old me doing like ridiculous videos for the morning announcements. I would
like to see these.
I'll pull them up later in the episode. I'll show them to you. But anyway, so I seem to remember I was doing something and I wanted to go out and do some like filming around the school or something for the intro for the announcements. And I seem to remember somebody saying something like about planes and something on TV about planes, and all that was pretty much all that I remember registering. And I was like, I thought that they were watching some videos of, like, my first thought was like videos of like air and water show planes or something like that. Cause I didn't totally understand it. I'm like, I'm not going to watch that. I'm going to go do something else. And it was only later that I think I was in the cafeteria and there was a TV on and people were watching it. And I was like, I didn't know what the World Trade Center was. I'd never been to New York City. I had no idea what that meant. And I was confused as to what was happening. I didn't know what any of this meant. And I was a very naive kid. And then as the news kind of grew throughout the day, it kind of became clear that something very sinister and deadly had happened. And then there were kids I knew that were like, my uncle works in that building, or I know people there. And, and everything was just sort of like, I was just I think just like everybody, people trying to make sense of it in the day and in the days surrounding it. And then the most bizarre part of this story for me, personally, this is because I didn't know anybody directly affected by it, but one of my memories of this event was that 2 days later, I had to have an emergency appendectomy.
Huh.
And so I was in a hospital, and the only thing that was on TV was 9/11 coverage.
Mm-hmm.
And Jason Ariano talking about like people jumping out of windows and just like video and images of that just perpetually on a loop in my hospital room. And then across the street from the hospital, there was like a military base in Arlington Heights where I was living. And there's like they had like put an anti-aircraft gun like on top of one of the buildings.
Jeez.
And it was also around this time that like, we lived near O'Hare.
Right.
And like they grounded all planes.
Yeah.
And so there was like nothing.
Yeah.
When you live near an airport,
right,
and all of a sudden the airplanes stop.
Yeah, that's pretty weird.
It is pretty weird. So that's where I'll leave that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything profound to say, but I definitely distinctly remember. So this was, my first quarter of college, and I was in an 8 a.m. health class 3 days a week, which that's a brutal entry into college.
Right.
But the day that it happened, I didn't know anything when I got to class at 8, but one kid came in a little after that and told the professor, who was not one of my favorite professors.
You gotta name names?
Well, Tony Quinn. Do you remember him?
I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. That he's like, a plane just crashed into one of the World Trade Center towers. And Professor Quinn said, "Oh, that's interesting." So anyway, back to what you need to do for health. And I was just like, I was like, if it's really as serious as it seemed, like if it were a bigger deal, like he probably would have like said, "Oh, maybe we should look into what's happening." But he just said, "Oh, that's interesting." So I was like, it probably can't be that big a deal. And then I remember walking back to the dorm after class, and just every person's door was open to their room with the TV on. And I think that's when the second plane went in. Anyway, what a wild day. And I just like, tough to process. I had a lot of friends who had moved to New York right around then to go to college there, and hearing from them about what was going on. And just, I remember the fear of people in Chicago being like, are they going to strike here next? And
right.
I don't know. So I don't know if the gravity of the situation fully hit me in the moment, like you were saying at the time, but I knew that this was crazy. So anyway,
yeah,
that's all I have.
Yeah. Certainly a day that had profound ramifications.
Yep.
I remember saying that like I wanted to talk about what Jason said about like anytime we go out, he goes out in public and he thinks about I just think that Americans have become so used to violence.
Yeah.
We live in a culture of violence, and I think we have, and I'm not even talking about violence in the sense of like what we watch on TV and movies, but like actual literal violence that plays out in real life, that we just sort of feel like it's part of the collateral damage of just like, this is what we get for having freedom, and this is what we get. This is like, just like, this is, and we just think that this is just part of the deal. And like, this doesn't have to be part of the deal. And when we conduct foreign policy in the way we do, and when we put up with the level of self-inflicted wounds in this country. And I know not everybody's going to agree with our politics on some of this stuff, but
sure.
I just think we've become accustomed to the level of death and blood that we actively let be spilled around us.
I agree.
And I was talking to my brother about this the other day, about how we both think, like, anytime we go to a movie, we just think about Colorado, and
right,
and it's not like that happens all the time. It takes once,
right.
It took 9/11 to change the way we operate with airports forever, and study after study shows that, like, the way we operate in the airports does not make us safer.
Right.
Taking off our shoes and having full body scans and all these long lines and everything, stuff still gets through the metal detectors. Stuff can still be, it doesn't make us safer. We're just perpetually, like, taking away freedoms from people, and freedom from have our privacy invaded, and also my freedom to not, get shot in a school or a church or a movie theater or whatever. Anyway, I know you and I are on the same page about this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know.
No. Yeah. It's just,
I think going to be losing some people at this point, but anyway,
should we take a classic hard left turn to a different number on our list?
Want to talk about some movies over here?
Let's talk about movies.
All right. Why don't you hit me with some of your? I only have a couple that are super significant for me.
Okay. Well, I was saying last episode, we both were. 2000, not a big movie year for us. 2001, very big movie year. Mulholland Drive from David Lynch, Twin Peaks creator.
I know you're a Lynch head.
It's true. Royal Tenenbaums, big one.
Yeah.
Amelie, classic.
Yes.
Lord of the Rings, anybody?
Yeah. Haven't heard of it.
Harry Potter, anybody?
Harry who?
First chapters in both of those sagas. Yep. And then other cool stuff, AI, artificial intelligence. What do you think about that movie? You ever see that one?
Nope, I have not. I did not see that one. That was that one with Haley Joel Osment?
It was. It's a really interesting and dark movie. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
The Others, good scary movie. And then Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Have you ever seen that?
I have not.
Oh, you would love it. You got to watch it.
Do you have it on DVD? Can I borrow it?
I don't, but I'm sure you can find it streaming like a normal person. I recommend you watch it.
Okay. So yeah, I had Lord of the Rings and HP. So so those are the movies that came out that year. So I didn't get, as I mentioned on the pod before, I didn't get into Harry Potter until
all right, that's right,
2003. And that's when when I first saw Sorcerer's Stone on DVD, and because I first started watching the movies, or reading the books rather, in Sweden in 2003 when I was studying abroad, and I was like hooked forever. And then someone had the first two movies on DVD, and we were watching them, and I was just like, this is Chris Columbus, you're amazing. This is just like the books. I love it. And I think it was like, and I also saw, because I think Return of the King came out in 2003,
right?
And I saw Return of the King in Sweden with Swedish subtitles.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah. So that's obviously 2003, not 2001. But I'm just thinking about like where I kind of fell with this whole series of films. But yeah, I was on board with Harry Potter from 2003 on.
Okay.
Yeah, ride or die.
Of course. Even when J.K. Rowling makes it harder to be these days.
Everybody's garbage. Everything sucks.
Okay. Should I do my last one?
Yeah.
Did you do yours? No.
No. I don't know. We've been matching up quite a bit with.
Yeah,
so
that's true. My last one is weird, and it's a little bit of a cheat. But because we don't get a 2002 Five Iron album, we get a 2003 one. I have to use my 2002 content here, and I got to talk about when Five Iron, Squad 5-0, Ace Troubleshooter, the Huntingtons, and 38th Parallel all played at North Park.
Oh shit!
In December of 2002. We've talked about this on the pod before.
We have, and do you know? And you know what? I'll tack on to that after you're done.
What you were doing that night?
Yes. And
we got to hear about that.
Oh Jesus.
But I've talked about this last season, but I worked security at it because of a weird connection that.
Is this your Leonore story?
Oh yeah, I can tell that part. I kind of forgot about that.
Dang. Oh no, you did not. I
didn't forget about it. I just meant I forgot to include it in this.
Forgetting about it over?
Never.
No, forget about it over.
So I worked security this thing because my buddy Brian Dirksen, who we've talked about on the pod before, was in a hip hop band called Poetic Blood, and the booker for his shows was also the booker for this whatever production company helped host this Five Iron show. So we got security t-shirts and we got to stand at the front of the stage and stuff. And it was great. Leonore gave me the mic for the la 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 part, which was wonderful. And then yes, what you're alluding to is after the show, Brian took a set list from the stage and gave it to Leonore because he knew that I was a fan of hers. And he had her sign it, and he was just like, "Oh, my roommate loves you. I love this band forever." And so she wrote, "Dear John, I love you," or something like that. And then after the show was like, "Oh, thanks for signing it," to her. And she was like, "I love you." And I was like, "Okay." And she's like, "I love you." And I was like, "All right, thanks. Good to see you."
You blew it.
Yeah.
Well, you blew it. You should have.
It was hung on the walls of my dorm or wherever I was living at that point. I guess it's still a dorm.
You could have used a Robo Rachel.
Yeah, exactly. If I would have been able to respond to Rachel's "I love you," I could have known what to say in that moment.
Yep. And if you just had to spare $1,500 for this fake product.
Yeah, too bad.
So there's a reason I couldn't go to that show because my lame ex-girlfriend.
Not pre-ex-girlfriend.
I wish she was my pre-ex-girlfriend. I'm pretty sure I told her that I wanted to go to the show, but instead, she bought tickets to a Michael W. Smith Christmas worship concert.
I mean, friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod. But I didn't go to that show because I was at this instead. And also driving back home or driving down there, one of the two, the serpentine belt or the power steering, something went out on her car that I was driving, and it's just everything was a mess, and I was just like, I could have been seeing Five Iron and Squad 5-0 right now.
Oh man, where was the show again?
I don't fucking care.
Sorry to open up old wounds. At least you and Smitty were able to reunite eventually and put your differences aside.
We're friends forever, me and Smitty.
Of course.
But anyway, so my last ending this with just a sigh is just, I feel like it was worth noting that the way we engaged with music changed in a significant way when iTunes and the iPod were released.
Yeah.
In 2001. And just I barely knew what an MP3 was at this point. That because they were still making CD players and people were still actively buying CDs. Best Buy had rows and rows and rows of CDs.
Yep.
And so now it's this was a new time that obviously we talked about Napster last time and the start of downloadable music. And so now this was a whole new way of engaging with music. And, obviously I'm a big vinyl head, but I stream a shitload of music too. So
World changed in many ways in 2001.
Yes. Leonore said she loved you and you rejected her advances. And then
the rest is history.
The rest is history. And for those who aren't already listening to Too Punk to Be a Hippie, I recommend you do that.
Interesting Leonore's podcast for those who don't know.
Yep, for those not in the know, get in the know, go listen to it. John, I can't believe I had this sitting right here for this particular reason to talk about it in the 5, and I keep forgetting to do it. Do you know what else came out in terms of music in 2001?
Hit me with it. Oh, Andrew WK. No?
Can you see?
Oh, wait. No, Thorsh, yes. Friends of the pod.
Friends of the pod. My freshman year roommate, Cooper, from Tucson, Arizona, was in a metal band. We've talked about them before.
We have.
Called Thorsh. And the name of the album is Fight the Monster.
So good.
And and I remember I still have this CD and I'm still very much into it. Cooper also a bassist, background vocalist.
Yeah, his background vocals were a little different than the ones that I offered.
Bro. So such classic songs as Metal Beast, Thrash Till You Die, Blood-Filled Memories,
Children of the Thorsh. That's just the album title.
No. Fight the Monster is the album title.
Oh, right.
Children of the Thorsh.
Yeah.
Go to your room and think about what you've done.
Children of the Thorsh. Oh man.
Kill the Silence. Unmourned. Yeah. So Friends of the Pod.
Friends of the Pod. I thought maybe you were going to mention AWK because I was surprised he wasn't in your 5.
Did he come? Did that album?
I Get Wet, November 2001, baby.
Dude, then that is 100%. I retroactively put that in my in my 5, my number 1 music spot because WK is forever in my heart.
Yes.
All right, so let's close up the 5. That has been the 5. This is going to be a 4-hour episode.
It really is.
People were like, "Who would live?" Danny posted something on the I Hate 5 Hour about like one of the covers that somebody did, and somebody is like, "Who would listen to somebody else's 3-hour podcast? Who would make a 3-hour podcast?"
We both weighed in.
Yeah, we're like, "Yep, well." Sorry, guys. This is.
I was like, rate and review us. He didn't respond.
He did not respond. I was like, "Yep, we'll spite you and make it 4 hours."
That's right.
All right. So when we come back, we're going to be talking about the much more consistent, much more musically interesting, and interesting in a good way.
Yeah.
2001 release, 5 Iron Frenzy 2, Electric Boogaloo.
That works too.
Staring at the shoreline, wishing for some hope, the weight of empty fishing nets.
And we're back. Magnified Pod 2, Electric Podaloo,
sure.
I guess whatever. So we're talking the Boogs. No one has ever called it that.
They will now.
Yep. Gotta love that boogs, bro. Are you booging? You booging over there, bro?
You know what I heard is a bummer? There's that like white nationalists and stuff when they're like online referring to what they imagine as like the coming race war or whatever. They refer to it as the Boogaloo.
No.
I'm like, come on, don't take this from us.
Come on.
Also, it's like a breakdancing term among black people. So maybe
can white nationalists just stop co-opting things that are like either neutral? You already have so much rhetoric and hateful imagery. Just like stick with it. Just take
Leave the Boogaloo alone.
Leave the Boogaloo alone. Leave the OK hand symbol alone.
Yeah,
just like innocuous things. Stop making them yours. Fuck off. Fuck you.
This is the beginning of our album segment.
Yeah. Well, if that is, here's the thing. If that's controversial, if my hatred of Nazis is controversial, then we're probably not friends.
No. Yeah.
Anyway, Five Iron Friends, the Electric Boogaloo.
Hey.
Oh, so this is an album that, as previously described, was a rock album with horns.
Right.
Not a lot of ska adjacent cuts on this record. There are some that are, but they're few and far between.
Yeah.
I purchased this album back in the day. I still have the CD booklet here. It's very. We were talking about this off mic about how, so all the hype album cover was silly, but then like the lyrical content was heavy and dark, and then this cover is very dark and gray. And
the title's silly, yeah.
And the title's silly. So it's kind of a weird juxtaposition. But I like it, and I like that everybody seems to be wearing like billowy jeans, which just very much dates.
Yeah,
is dated in the picture, but all the pictures too are like super emo, and everybody is looking like pensive and like sitting in the dirt, and Reese looks like he's crying, and Andy is, everybody's just like, it's everybody's model shots, and everybody looks good as hell.
Yeah, they do.
Did
Did you get this album when it came out?
I did, yeah.
And what were your initial impressions?
I listened to it a lot.
Okay.
I was into it.
I
noted the shift, but I was into it.
Yeah. I remember I had the poster hanging on my dorm wall. I think it was like, I got it from Covenant Bookstore, the Christian bookstore on our campus, I want to say.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think, so I had talked about how all the hype had come out, and it didn't really stick with me. And I think I didn't feel, I know that I liked Electric Boogaloo more. I also got it when it came out. But I think my thoughts at the time were that, like, again, kind of going another sort of like big rock songs album. Initially, I felt like it was probably a little too slick, maybe like a little boring,
interesting,
a little too self-serious.
Interesting.
There are a lot of songs that have like serious or dark verses that don't always mesh with the choruses. And there's sometimes where, like, I would say from this album on, was it a Tumble Down song that I always used to talk about, where he's like, I took a couple pills tonight? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Where it's like bordering on that, like, this is serious and I'm raspy now, like, where it just gets into that territory. But, I will say I'm really happy to kind of rediscover it now again as a really strong album. I think it's like a much more cohesive album than all the hype, even though it's another sort of like rock leaning album, as we said. I it's got a much stronger first half for me. So
okay, yeah,
see what you think.
I don't disagree with that.
There's also many more songs with like more explicitly Christian lyrics.
There was definitely noted that it has some of the most in your face, like this could be like transitioned into a worship song pretty easily. But this is produced by Frank Tate.
So Masaki Lu still produced it, but Frank Tate was executive producer.
Okay, so I wonder I'm curious what changed.
I think Tate has been executive producer on at least the last couple of albums.
Okay.
But I do see he is credited as producer in a couple places, but I know Masaki Lu is also still on this one. So I don't know exactly what that delineation is, but yeah, this is another 5 Minute Walk release. Came out in November 2001. It didn't appear to chart, which is weird. I would have expected this to.
Well, considering the association of Five Iron Frenzy with the ska scene and ska having just started to really nosedive, that it totally doesn't surprise me.
Sure.
But I mean, for the hardcore ska fans who are there for the journey, which there are some, and there are some that weren't. So this brings us to the question of the week.
Yes.
And you might be saying to yourself, Andrew, John, question of the week. This is not a regular segment. Why? There hasn't been a week before this. Okay, so here's the thing. For MXP, when we did MXPX, we would do a lot of questions of the week, and this is something that we're just trying to get a little bit more engagement. Okay, so why don't you get off our backs? This is the time of the podcast where Andrew gets indignant and starts pointing fingers at the listeners.
That's fair.
No, it was a segment we used to do, and we were just like, oh, maybe we should bring that back, see what people think. So, John, what do people think? What do people say?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of asked. So, as you know, Five Irons and other ska bands sound was sort of shifting from a traditional ska sound to more of a rock band with horns. Did you go along for the ride, or rediscover them, come to appreciate them later? And over on Facebook, Jason Maxwell said, "I loved it, especially after the all over the map nature of all the hype," which is fair.
I thought it was their most consistent record.
Yeah. Wait, you're talking about all the hype when you say that, right?
Yes, I was joking.
Somebody said that earlier.
Yeah, it was a callback from like an hour ago.
Right. Yeah, so much time has passed. And then let's see, over on Instagram, Irish Rover 32 said, after being a Five Iron diehard, I couldn't get on board with all the hype and didn't even give Electric 2 a chance. Even now, after eventually giving Electric 2 plenty of listens, it's still the Five Iron album I listen to the least. I think it's a better album than all the hype, but it's not very fun. And that seemed to me the issue with Rock with Horns. It just didn't seem as fun as ska. Less Than Jake and Goldfinger suffered the same fate. Which I think I felt similarly to him at the time that it came out. I just kind of was like, oh, ska's moving away from that sound. I'm not as invested in it anymore. But I have enjoyed going through it. Our good buddy Jason from Unoriginal Vinyl weighed in with the exact opposite response and said, Electric Boogaloo is the best Five Iron Frenzy record, period. Hands up, fight me. A position that he shared on last week's episode with us.
Yeah.
Hot take. But.
It is a hot take. I mean, I think the traditional safe response would be our newest album ever would be but then again, Jason from Atlanta said, enough with the old stuff. Give me some engines.
Yeah.
You know, let's get into some of that new, let's get that new shit. Yeah. And I don't disagree. It's not that like I don't want to hear Blue Comb, but like I think I said maybe in earlier episodes, I could do without Arnold and Willis and Mr. Drummond. I could do without that. I could maybe do without Flowery Song. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I just like, let's mix it up, because I'm not gonna blow up my spot too soon and say like what I feel about Engines or Engine a Million Pots. But there are a lot of solid songs on that record. Yep. And I think Five Iron in recent years has found a groove, and we're currently in the midst of the like post Scott albums,
right,
and then later albums have the post Scott with the return of Scott. Uh-huh. And I just think that Five Iron they've done their work without Scott, and they created Electric Boogaloo, which I think on the whole is a very solid record. And then taking that songwriting and that style and bringing him back into the fold, I think joining those forces has created a sound that I think very much works.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I wouldn't love a little bit more ska.
Sure.
But I also don't hate it.
Yeah. I'm very eager for us to go through Engine and talk about that. One last comment from Instagram. Insta Riles weighed in and said, I love the rock with horns, though I basically only started with all the hype, then had to move backwards. I still love the fun of the original ska, but Engine is probably my most listened to album of any band since it came out. Love that style. So people like Engine.
Yes. So I know this is not a this is going to be kind of a side comment about rock with horns, but there's a band from Austin, Texas called Quiet Company, and I may have brought them up at some point earlier on in our MagPod history of episodes. I mean, we've talked about so much stuff, it's virtually impossible to remember anything we've said ever. So they started in Austin in 2005, and they're essentially a rock band with horns.
Who is this?
They're called Quiet Company.
Quiet Company.
And they've released some great records. One of their records that is probably the most significant albums in the last 10 years for me has been their album We Are All Where We Belong. I just want to lift up this record for a couple of reasons. One, they're a rock band that has horns, and they are not ska in any way. Aside from that musical point, where I think the music is really great, but this record was significant for me because when I first heard it a couple years after it came out, I heard it in 2013, was when I was struggling with my faith identity and what I believed, and trying to wrestle, like, do I believe in God? Do I not believe in God? And this record was essentially the lead singer who grew up in Texas and grew up a Christian. And this was sort of his like album about his deconversion. I grew up in the church. I'm no longer in the church. Right. I don't believe in God. Okay. And just sort of like him going through and talking about it. And it was all this stuff I was afraid to say.
Right.
And I was afraid to admit. And it was the first time I heard it, it was one of the most emotional experiences. I was at work in my cubicle, and there was a song, there's a point where the refrain is, can't you see that we are all where we belong? And then they repeat, we belong, we belong. And it made me feel so emotional to think like for so long I felt this like self-hatred about myself as a Christian, that I'm a bad Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And for once I was having somebody affirm me indirectly that I belong and my life is valid and I'm okay. And it just hit me so hard. And while somebody might pick up this record and listen to it and be like, oh, this is pretty good, we all have those records that in that specific time in our life that will forever just be like, I needed this record right now. And this record landed at the exact moment I needed it. And so when I think about rock bands with horns, I don't automatically think of Five Iron. I think of Quiet Company, and how I just have a soft spot and an emotional connection to this kind of a band. And and so I have nothing but love.
Yeah. I like it. Should we get into the album?
Should I talk about another rock band with horns for 45 minutes?
Chicago. They're pretty good.
Oh man. Anyway, okay, let's move on to talking about the band. Oh shit.
She's so cool, it's almost eerie. She's so fine, I lost all hope. Genetical testing, something has gone wrong. She should get back in her cave before they find she's gone. She said she hated Kenny G. That girl is way too good for me. We'll break up before it starts. She'll only tear my world apart. Da na 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 na. Free ex-girlfriend. That girl is just too fine. Free ex-girlfriend, leaving me behind. You might say she's everything. Just
Man, shouts.
Andy.
Well, I was gonna say shouts to. I was gonna say shouts to Keith.
Oh yeah, him too. But those punk drums, I love those drums.
The drums. This is a total redeeming album opener song.
Yeah.
It like after last record, which it was still my number one, the album opener of was still, but this is like punch you in the dick, like it's like it's just like
so good.
it's I don't know if I've heard them play this live. I mean, I would be into hearing this live and watching them pull this song off live.
I want to say they used to do it at least. But this is my number 2.
Oh shit, nice.
I like this one a lot.
I like it a lot too.
It's very silly.
It is. Well, I mean, it's only it's silly because the idea of a pre-ex girlfriend is just like somebody who's not into you.
Right, but she's also like a genetic creation or something. You read
genetical.
She's a genetical creation. If you read the lyrics in the first verse, it's like genetical testing. Something has gone wrong. She should get back in her cage before they find she's gone. It's like, what's happening here? So I don't know. It's just there's a lot going on.
Yeah, I don't understand. But I also like
genetical.
I love genetical, but I want to know Micah's deal. I want to know Micah's like. I want to sit down with Micah and talk to him about music and like his influences, because like I wonder how much he's like, all right guys, let's can we do some like heavy ass riffs here? If he's the one that's like, let's get these like chug like, you know, palm muted, you know,
right.
Like
I do think the songs that he has a credit on tend to be the ones that have like a standout sort of metally riff in them.
Yeah.
Which I'm here for. I'm
all about it.
I'm also here for the horns in the bridge. That The like ba bump bump bwana, ba bump bump bwana. Yeah. So good.
Hi. I was across the room.
Are we assuming that's Leonore?
It doesn't sound like her.
It doesn't sound like her either. I don't like, but it would be weird to like. We have a girl in the band.
Girl will do.
Should we hire someone out to like?
I really, I tried to figure out who it was based on the like production notes, and I don't know. So, 5 Iron Nation, tell us who this is.
Yeah, I don't.
It's not somebody from Def Leppard. I know that.
It's a contender.
Yeah,
it's a contender, but I didn't make now onto the most in your face song about faith on the record.
Staring at the shoreline, wishing for some hope. The weight of empty fishing nets is more than twist and roll. And underneath stern faces, they wave with bated breath, with broken hearts from hoping while casting out their nets. See the figure on the shore, speaks his words like plain men sing. His hands they still have holes in them. Glory to the King. Can you hear the bells are ringing far, far away? Can you hear the voices singing far, far away? And Peter was a liar, a traitor just like me.
It's a good hooky song. The chorus is hooky as hell.
Yes, I think very angsty opening and verses.
Yeah.
But I love the chorus. It's definitely, I would say, a top 3 contender for me. I just think it's another one. It's another case of like, I'm not sure those different parts work together super well.
Do you think it's kind of like what Jason was saying with the quantity, where it's like,
oh yeah,
this is these parts sort of like it's like a big shift in like tone or style or whatever.
Yeah, I don't feel that with Quantity, and I do feel it with All the Hype. I feel it less with this one, but it's still there sometimes. But I don't know. I think this one, I think it's a pretty poetic approach to the topic, kind of telling it as a story, and I think it's pretty powerfully told through its lyrics, actually. Like, the idea of like following the call despite your status, despite the cost of doing that. I don't know. It's an interesting. I know this is a very popular one for fans, and I wonder if this will be in a lot of people's top 3, but didn't crack mine.
There's something to like about this song it just obviously it's for me it's a little bit on the nose.
Sure.
For me to be like, oh yeah, for sure, this is but so here's a little tidbit about this song that I think is kind of interesting. So there is a sketch comedy duo that has been making videos for and you can find them on YouTube, and I think they're one of like my favorite sketch comedy duos, and they put out videos super infrequently, but whenever they do, they're just pure genius and pure silliness. This 2 guys named Brian and Nick, and they have a channel called Britannic, and for a while they were using this as the end song for their sketches. So
interesting.
The sketches would end, and then it would be, "Can you hear the bells are ringing?"
Interesting.
So there's a sketch. It's called Talk with Dad, and Nick is holding an ice pack to his face, and his dad walks in the room.
So...
He looks concerned.
School called.
School called.
Want to tell me what happened? I think you should tell me.
He leans down to sit next to his son.
Son.
He removes the ice pack to reveal a black eye, a bloody nose.
Well, I was sitting in art class. I wasn't bothering anybody. And then you burst through the door and beat the shit out of me. Then why did I do that? I have no idea. Wrong answer!
Can you hear the bells are ringing far,
Interesting.
far away?
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. So
Are they like Christian or?
I have no idea.
That's pretty interesting. Wrong answer. Really takes a dark turn.
So I recommend everybody check. They've had some extremely popular videos that went viral. They did one that was like every Academy Award winning trailer ever or something. Academy Award winning movie trailer, and it just like touches on like every possible trope in an indie movie ever. But yeah, so check out Britannic, and for whatever reason, I'm curious if Five Iron and other Five Iron fans are know this, but I've always found it kind of curious that like one of like the most Christian songs, like on the nose Christian songs, is like the bumper music for this like silly and oftentimes irreverent sketch comedy duo.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. I didn't know about that.
Yep. All right. Moving on to You Can't Handle This.
Making young girls pine. I don't have the time. Babies get in line. I've got a protector. Gotta say, but now it goes gut-ching. Gotta have a math club groundbreaking. Gotta rock the screen with cosine graphing on my calculator. If you're up and if you want a piece of me, wave goodbye and blow a kiss, 'cause you can't handle this. No, 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 you can't handle this. No, 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 you can't handle this.
This is my number 3.
Okay, it's definitely a top 3 contender for me.
It's a jam. The little guitar hook lick there.
So good. Yeah.
It's great. It has like it's like sort of has like a combo guitar sort of keyboard sound to it. And it sounds great. And the oohs during the chorus are especially live. This song rules live.
Yeah, it's fun. They usually play this one.
They usually play this one live. Yep.
I think it just feels a little too slow to me. And I don't know if it would work as well if it were faster, just like, especially by the time they, do the key change.
And Leonard Nimoy. Yeah.
Yeah, it just feels like I'm like dragging a little bit. But I do really like it. It's another silly one. It's kind of a return to like Sucker Punch territory a little lyrically. Well,
but no, in a way, it's sort of like the anti-Sucker Punch.
Right,
because
exactly,
it's like embracing, I'm awesome, You got to get in line. I'm a nerd and I'm awesome, and you have to deal with it. It's sort of like embracing the nerdy sides.
Yes.
And part of me is like, that's kind of the stuff that I'm on board for.
Yeah, no, I'm into it. It's a good one. I love that riff. Really is an all timer.
Yep. Moving on. You ready to move on?
Yep.
Farsighted.
Oh yeah, yeah, ooh baby, yes
To all the farsighted, the sky has never been so clear. Hello to the hopeful, goodbye to the full of fear. Glorious, luminous, the heavens are painted, have pushed you with angel wings. And you know in your heart that the farsighted see better things.
What they have in this album that they didn't have in all the hype is kind of earwormy melody lines, and this is chock full of them. I don't know what happened between 2000 and 2001, but they got their shit together and learned how to write hooks. So
much so that it's my number one.
Oh shit!
I thought this might make your 3.
It almost did. There were some contenders.
Yeah,
there were some contenders.
This one was always my favorite song from this album. From as soon as I got it, I wondered if that would stay the same when I listened this time, and it still did. I don't know. It's so driving that it's great. It integrates the horns so well with this driving riff, and then it's like the soaring chorus.
Yeah.
I love the guitar. I'm just very, very on board for this one.
As I've listened to this album a lot in the last week, there are some songs that I find myself going through the lyrics in my head, or like just that are like melody lines that are stuck in my head just a little bit more. Yeah. And that they're just like, man, this song, it just like, it sticks with me.
Yeah.
This isn't really one of them.
Billie Holiday on the radio. My sluggish heart is beating 7 beats too slow. Another sad song and another shot of blue. Cold and unconcerned are anything but new. He said love endures all things, and it hurts to think he's right. If I'm more than a failure, is his burden just as light? I am Spartan, close my heart so tight. Jesus, save me from myself tonight. Living through the world, there's a knowing look or two.
So it's noted in the lyrics booklet. It says Spartan, noun, a warrior from the ancient Greek city of Sparta. Adjective, one who lives modestly, used to describe a hermit, someone who lives in squalor and loneliness.
Yeah.
I think there's supposed to be this like combination of like somebody who's hardens their heart to blocking themselves from Jesus, I guess.
I think it feels very similar to All the Hype territory in terms of like feeling very low, it being sort of a depression song, which there are a few of those on this record, and needing God to get us through the hardest time. So Yeah, I think of it as like a metaphor of Spartan in terms of like sparse, like this guy's not really living for anything, having this like simple existence, but then Spartan also in terms of facing sort of, trials and battles, like just using it as a metaphor to be like needing God through those times. I don't know. I like it. It's not among my very faves, but it's very like that opening feels very emo, that like guitar riff.
Yeah.
The verse chords also feel very emo.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I like it.
And all of our slogans designed to take the pain away meant nothing to the Son of God that night in Bethlehem. So I think that's a message kind of repeated a little later in the record. Now on to probably the heaviest Five Iron song that they've ever written.
We've shoveled lives, a massive pipeline for the lies. I pass so fast with genocide and ignorance we hide behind. You say that we are done with this, turn blind eyes and still dismiss, talking about something past and still create a ruckus. Lies, 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 lies. The way you live shows no remorse. Crazy horse, innocence with glassy eyes. Kill the nation, steal their pride. On broken backs we build empires, twisting spines for steeple spires. How many people can you kill with your $20 bill? Do you see the third world?
This is my number one.
Number three.
This song fucking rules.
Okay.
It rules. There is so much about this song that I'm super into. Obviously, because it's like heavy as hell, but it's also like when it comes to like their Native American genocide songs, this is just like there's no misinterpreting this as like a happy song.
Right.
You say that we're done with this, turn blind eyes and still dismiss, chalk this up as something past and still create a lower caste. I mean, we've talked about how Five Iron has been very prescient in some of their lyrics. And it's just like, 20 years later, I mean, there's so many things that America is part of our dark history that people are like, why don't you just get over it, bro? Just like get over it. He talks about like systemic injustice and racism. And the part where he says, on broken backs, we build empires, twisting spines for the steeple spires. How many people can you kill? Look at your $20 bill. And obviously referring to Andrew Jackson.
Yeah.
And the Indian Removal Act, which pretty much justified wholesale slaughter and genocide of Native Americans.
Yep.
And so it's like people like, just get over it. This is the past. It's like, we still represent this motherfucker on our currency. And
interestingly, go ahead.
No, yeah, we were trying to replace with, like Harriet Tubman or somebody.
No, it was Harriet Tubman. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that didn't happen.
Supposedly, it might still happen, but there was momentum behind it for a little while, and of course, under this administration, doesn't seem to have taken any big leaps there. But like going from a slave owner to somebody who freed slaves might have been a good move, but whatever.
Yeah. The part, and this also very prescient in 2001. And now to treaties we are loyal, but tear them up when we smell oil.
Yep.
Come on. Come on, this is just a slam dunk. And then in the lyrics, they have the reading from "Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee," and he encourages people to read it.
Yeah.
So there's nothing not to love about this song.
I'm very glad that this is the song that we overlap for our threes. It's my number 3. Yeah, I mean, talking about prescience, like there was a headline today. I don't know if you saw this, that Trump
was that a nightmare headline about how everything's a disaster?
One of many today, literally.
Oh, cool.
But one of the nightmares is that the administration is blowing up a Arizona national monument.
Oh, tight. Everything's amazing. I love everything.
It's a mountain that's a sacred spot for Native Americans that's being blown up to build the border wall there. So,
rad. Hey, and so remember the pipeline that everybody was protesting, right. and then how that started leaking immediately.
Yeah.
It's almost like we should listen to Native people and not destroy their fucking land still.
Sounds a little crazy. It's very, I think the song is really powerful. I'm curious to see what people think. I don't know. Like, it's definitely a hard turn. As you were saying, it's like certainly the darkest they've gone than any of their other, I think songs about genocide either.
I think there was a turning point for Reese, it seems, where he kind of ran out of fucks.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe this is just the album where he's just like,
yeah,
I don't know.
I think they're kind of seeing the writing on the wall and being like, we might be done here, so we might as well get in we think about what's happening. He doesn't pull any punches again on the Christian music industry. No, that's coming up
in a little bit.
Yeah.
Juggernaut? Or do you have more to say?
I was just going to say a little more. I mean, I'm super into the thrashy bass. I'm super into the way the way they integrate the horns. I'm not as into the delivery on the verses. Like, he does that sort of like white guy.
$20 bill.
It's just, that raspy rap delivery. He's trying to kind of do like a Zach from...
Yeah, he's got some Zach De La Rocha going on, but I don't hate it. I'm not hating.
I don't hate it. I'm just not sure a white person can pull it off super well. I kind of wish it was a little more like, they do in hardcore songs where it's sort of like talk singing. Like maybe that might have been a better approach.
Reese has always had a little bit of a questionable approach to hip hop and like reggae.
Yes.
So I
always find it questionable when I hear it. Then
let's just wait until we get to Brave Saint Saturn and we'll get into
all
that.
But by the time he transitions into lies, like how can I not follow with him? Have you ever been to the Crazy Horse Memorial?
I have not.
It is really cool. Almost everybody who goes to see Mount Rushmore says the same thing, which is that the Crazy Horse Memorial is way cooler. It's unfinished, of course, because it's like relying on private funding, and that's not ever fully come together.
Is that near Mount Rushmore?
Yeah, it's like right next to it.
Oh, it's sort of fucked up to have like these 4 white dudes overlooking like a monument to genocide.
Well, yeah, I mean that was why they created the Crazy Horse Monument there, to be like, here's the actual history of this land. But
we still barely teach that history in history.
It's true. The recording that he has there, which is as you said, the excerpt from the book, is really powerful. The guy who it's a quote from in the book is Black Elk, who is a holy man of the Lakota people, and he's the second cousin of Crazy Horse, and just kind of his summarizing of what he saw the day of this, massacre, and just, I don't know, it's pretty dark.
Yeah, it's super dark, and we can talk about Reese and his evolving over the years on different social issues, but he's been fucking right about this from the jump.
It's true.
So, all right, Juggernaut.
Yep.
Juggernaut, 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 Juggernaut. This seems so big. big for me, hulking monstrosity. Too late to get out now. And like the speed of sound, this thing has brought me down. I don't remember how. I want to be free, but juggernaut is killing me. Freedom like a song, the weak shall be made strong. I've been sick before I swim, but I'm not giving in to you. Juggernaut, 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 juggernaut.
So, of course, this is the song about the X-Men character Juggernaut.
That's right. Obviously.
Kane Marco. He's a strongman. Sorry. And stepbrother of Professor X. Anyway.
Of course. Good bit.
LOL.
What do you think about this one? It's a little boring to me.
It's probably one of my bottom two.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty far down there. It's got a very catchy chorus. I think the guitar sound on the verses is interesting, sort of that reggae-ish vibe. Yeah. It's another one of those sort of weight of the world depression songs that he still seems to kind of be in that wheelhouse at the moment. But yeah, I don't know. I don't dislike it, but it's not my top half.
Yeah, it's a like things are hard, life is hard, but Jesus. That's it.
But Jesus. And Professor X, of course.
And Professor X, of course. And then Magneto is causing all sorts of suffering and, but yeah, this is another song where there's an annotation about definitions of juggernaut and something such as a belief or institution that elicits blind and destructive devotion, to which people are ruthlessly sacrificed. An overwhelming advancing force that crushes or seems to crush everything in its path. It doesn't assume that people need necessarily remain passive when confronted by what appears to be the juggernaut of history. Christopher Lehman Haupt.
Interesting. Heavy stuff.
Yep. This is Reese's emo phase.
Yeah, for sure.
On to Plan B, which is the first overtly ska song.
Yes,
on the record.
It is.
I fell asleep with my clothes on, dropped my keys on the front lawn. Waking up, I watched the jeweler gleaming from my mouth to the carpet, and it's streaming. Giving up never felt so good. Welcome to Plan B. I'll eat some moldy bread, then I'm going.
This is my number 2.
Okay. I would say this is my number 4, just barely outside the top 3.
Yeah, this is one of the songs that I found to be one of the most earwormy songs
for sure.
on the record. And I'll find myself like I was grocery shopping the other day and I was, ooh,
totally. Yeah.
Welcome to Plan B. And I'm just, it's hooky and catchy as hell. And it's also like legitimately a potential plan for my life, just like, I don't know, I've been going through some stuff and I'm connecting with the songs that I'm connecting with. I connect with them because of the relevance to my life in the moment. And isn't that how we all kind of relate to music is that we're just like, we can like listen to a song and be like, oh, this is a great aesthetic. But then when you listen to it, like, and it's like, oh, the musical aesthetic is still there, but like, there's something about the lyrics that are striking me in a different way than maybe they would have in another time in my life. So,
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's a really fun song about being sad or about like,
yeah.
just trying for a new course in the midst of sort of depression.
Right.
But as you said, I really like that ska sound. I love that organ or whatever that is, like the weird kind of keyboard sound. But it's really cool.
Yeah, there's something about it too that makes me feel like, this might sound like a slight or an insult or something, but like there's also something about it that reminds me of PFR.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
There's a PFR song that like the ooh wah oohs.
Yeah, totally.
That there's like a PFR song that has that kind of vibe, and it's not. I'm not hating on it.
No. Pod FR coming soon.
Yeah, Pod for Rain. This will happen eventually. We've talked about this for 17 years.
That's when we started recording this episode.
Yep. we started recording this episode back when we were in college and high school.
This is truth, so see if this makes sense to you. Under the guise of Jesus Christ, beneath the vibe and all the lights, they lie. These spies covered your eyes. I never knew this was a contest. I guess we lost it long ago. Blue mixes, fixing prices. Sure, you say one thing, but your actions tell the truth on you.
Just want to listen to the second verse for a minute.
So Blue Mix means to weekend sounds and concert halls to battlegrounds. Make us pay to go on tour. Marked up t-shirts to match yours. Blind fans, gold mine. You are dollar signs. And when did this become a contest?
So, are you familiar? Have you been familiar with the concept of blue mixing?
I was going to ask you. I'd never heard of it until I looked it up for this.
Yeah, I've heard of the concept. Definitely heard of the concept before, and it's super shitty. And for those who aren't, it's essentially when you mix the opening bands or the non-headlining bands a little worse to make the headlining band stand out all the more and make them just appear even better. And so Reese is calling out this practice, but also like how Christian promoters, like there's nothing different. That
right.
This is the industry, Christian music industry, secular music industry, everybody's garbage. And this just goes back to him trying to be like competing to play music with other bands. Like, you know, when did this become a contest? Making blind fans pay more just because they can, and you can make them pay more for stuff.
Yeah. Love it when he sets his sights on the Christian music industry. I really love the horn intro. I think that's great. I think the verses are like a little more of a bummer. But I like I just like the kind of like the self-reflection angle of it too. Like in the bridge when he's like, these bands you love pull the wool over your eyes, so watch them, watch us. Like,
yeah,
watch out for those bands, including ours, for when we might be trying to pull some of this on you. I don't know. It's interesting. It's not an area that's explored very often.
This is with all of these deep dives that we're doing. Like, I already loved Reese, but like, I just have more and more respect for the dude that he's calling for accountability, like for his own band,
right?
Like, and I think that's cool.
Yeah, totally.
And are you ready for the weird song?
I don't know.
Ooh, that's a thick ass bass.
Watching Mrs. Brady run a brand new Kenmore washer. See the brilliant gleam of the automatic toothbrush. A beautiful vagina, what a lovely cup and saucer. Yeah, I saw your Rolex, but I think it's an imposter. Wave to the pretty ladies with your brand new hairpiece, baby. Ah, the smell of cash, it's good to be alive. I'm going to spend some dough like it's 1985. With the tags off mattresses, you'll buy more anyway. It's a pain on that SUV, some brand new type of gray. Believe in anything, voices circling. Open, swallow, you're so hollow, yeah.
I like the horn lines.
Yeah, it's cool. This is definitely the giants of this album.
Yes, this is the giants of the album. This is there's a song that I referenced earlier that was just sort of like talking about stuff that makes us happy.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the sort of anti-capitalist song about just get the stuff, fill in the emptiness with stuff.
Right. Yeah, Jason compared Giants to Devo last week, and we were thinking more Tom Waits, but this feels very Devo to me.
This is Devo as hell, yeah.
Yeah, it's like very satire, very kind of 80s. It feels like all the hype more than any other song on this album. But the verses feel very different from all the other parts of the song, and it takes a hard turn into that chorus. But it's an interesting one. I mean, he's talking about the revolution. I'm into that.
I love a song about revolution.
Yeah.
They say the word on the street is something's going down. When the revolution comes, the revolution. Let me find that part.
And beneath the brazen windows you can hear the sound. They say the word on the street is something's going down. Revolution comes. When the revolution comes. When the revolution comes. When the revolution comes. Believe in anything.
I mean,
that part's pretty dope.
It's pretty great.
Yeah.
Pretty great.
Yeah, it's one of those songs that's like, here's one idea, here's a very different idea.
Right.
Can we make them the same thing?
Right. Maybe.
It's the same song over it?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Imagine you have
So this is
Car.
Car by Leonore.
Yep.
In memory of her brother Carlos Ortega. And evidently it references an E. Cummings poem.
Right. Yeah.
And reminding us to be present and acknowledge the blessings of each day.
Yeah, I think lyrically it's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
I like it musically. I really like the horns a lot. But the chorus kind of stops the momentum for me. As much as I like that idea lyrically, it just feels like it kind of slows down again there. So it doesn't quite stay at that level for me. But
it's an emotional song.
Yeah, for sure.
This is one of the handful of songs that you see with Andy as a music credit on.
Right. Yeah.
You get, and also so Vultures and Car right in a row have. I don't know if he has any other.
I don't think so.
Any other credits on here, but you have any other thoughts on that song?
Nope.
Should we move on to Eulogy?
Let's do it.
Today, all the sources would agree that the day of their death was a cold, dark day. Scuttled ships that blocked the sea, and the pallid light of morning melts into an ashy gray. And goodbye to everything, sayonara everyone. They are tired, write the eulogy. No one understood a word they said, held them all as
I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit.
Okay.
cemetery for the humble. No one's here to make you stumble. If Jesus Christ is true, then I am mostly lies. If Jesus Christ is love, then I have failed to try. If Jesus Christ is life, then please just let me die. Let this die. And goodbye to everything. Sayonara everyone.
It's pretty intense.
Yeah. Every new day too, Electric Boogaloo.
Except much darker.
Yeah. I mean, it's obvious. It's so much. It's more somber. I mean, it's literally called Eulogy.
Eulogy. Yeah. I think the way that I had been thinking of it was like, again, kind of back to that idea we were talking about, like Reformed theology, that informing the lyrics of it being like, you know, he's in a dark place. He can't do anything without God. But when I was reading a bit about it, it was like the theory is that it's about the band deciding that it might be time for them to end. And just like, you know, the stuff about putting the kings on pedestals, that he was like, I don't want people to put us up on a pedestal. And if that's what we're doing by being in this band, then like, let's let this die. So that's pretty interesting. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Goodbye to everything. Sayonara, everyone. They are tired. Write the eulogy.
Yeah.
I mean, just sort of talking about what they had been expected to do over these past 5 years.
Yeah.
Is a feat.
Yeah.
Considering they wrote as much music as they did.
Right.
With only one album to their name that was not super strong.
Right.
I think is impressive.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that it was like, I thought it was kind of about dying to yourself being necessary in order to fully be like Christ. Right. But I think it's more like, let's let this thing die because it's not serving people as best as it can, which is interesting. It is kind of in keeping with that like closing worship song in the sense that, again, it's like very explicitly Christian and kind of this prayer, but it's also like pretty dark.
Right.
So yeah, a really interesting closer. Not related to that. I was just going to ask, did you watch the video for Farsighted?
I did not. Let me pull that up right now. No?
You can. It's just like, this was the money behind this was negative money.
So it was like many
wrecking hotel rooms. The video. What did I say about it?
No, there was. I don't know if it was wrecking hotel rooms. Looked like it had a little bit of.
That was it. Oh, I think I said it. They used whatever the like sequel was to that. They used the leftover money from that.
Yeah.
To make that crappier one. No, this is just the band playing in a bus the whole time.
And also, not different than MXPX playing or like being on a bus.
The bus breaking down.
Bus breaking down.
Similar vibes.
To all the farsighted, the sky has never been so clear. Hello.
Yeah, it's not really worth noting too much, but
they did this between shows.
Yeah, for sure. They were like on their way to somewhere and like, oh, we got to do a video.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun, but yeah, as far as I know, that's the only video from this record. So
yeah,
worth shouting out.
So that's Five Iron Frenzy 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Sure is. Let us know what you think about it over on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can rate and review us and smash that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. You can email us at magnifiedpod@gmail.com.
You can. You can also leave us a voicemail.
Hey.
With your thoughts about the episodes, with your intro suggestions.
Yes, please.
Or even like an intro suggestion. You can leave us that at 872-762-4763, 872-7-MAG-POD.
You can support us if you're so inclined at patreon.com/magnifiedpod. Check out our merch at magnifiedpod.storeenvy.com. And thanks to our shadow producer on Original Vinyl. And thanks to Heavy Ordnance Studios and Danny Leary for our artwork. Well, time is winding down, but only for this episode. We want you to be found enjoying the next episode when we'll have a very special guest.
Open up that bitch!
Internet's craves with shoveled rides, a massive pipeline for the rise. A pass so fast with genocide and ignorance we hide behind.
I love that part. I love the little feedbacky.